My name is Dr. Alina Sabo-Kolchitsky. Thank you for coming here this morning. Welcome to Boutique Bodyworks, my clinic, physical therapy, fitness, and nutrition practice. And we're here today for an important cause. I have a lot of great presenters who volunteered, donated their time and expertise to share our passion. We want to help raise money to help people fight blood cancer and also to end blood cancer by funding research that brings new treatments that saves lives every day through the help of LLS, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And on that note, we're going to start with a with a Pilates intro beginner's mat class. And I'm here on the Cadillac. This is a Pilates Cadillac, but we've got a mat mode ready to start our mat class. We're going to start with some fundamentals to make sure you're connecting and finding those correct muscles in your deep core. So let's start by laying down on your backs. We're going to bring our feet together and our knees together into the center line. So draw a line down the middle of your body. That's our center line. We want to keep our legs hugging in throughout the class into that area. The other thing we want to think about the whole time is our powerhouse. So the Pilates powerhouse refers to our deep, deep abdominals, the layer called the transversus abdominis. It's what acts like a corset to support your spine and your trunk, your core. So the way to activate that is think about your belly button. Pull it down towards your spine and notice how your back just automatically starts to flatten into the surface. We're also going to draw it upwards. So down to the spine and up towards the rib cage. So this J kind of scooping down and up. That gives us that nice support there through our middle. Let's hold it and still breathe. Make sure that you can breathe while you're doing this exercise. And release it. Let the tummy just relax. Notice how the back lifted a little bit. Let's try it again. Pull your belly button down in towards your spine and up towards the ribs. We're going to hold, 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 and release. That's our powerhouse. I do want to bring some awareness to our upper core as well. So when we do any arm movements, we want to think about engaging our upper core, deep muscles in our upper trunk. So let's start with trying to pull our rib cage in towards this front in the center, and then funnel it down towards your hips. So you have this drawing inward and downwards. Let the shoulders go wide into the mat and reach to the sides. So we don't want this pulling back so much, but rather to the walls next to you. Okay, so we've got that funneling down and in, scooping in and up. From here, keep scooping. We're going to lengthen your right leg. Slide it out along the mat, press down with your quad or the front of your thigh, and still scoop in and up in opposition to that stretch away. Slide back in. Left leg slides out, pull the belly button down and pull up, press it down, and return. Let's do that a couple more times. Slide out, and return. Left, and back. One more time each side, feeling that oppositional stretch. Last time on the left. Knee lifts. We're going to lift one knee up. As we lower, keep scooping in and up to oppose the downward movement of the leg. On the left side, lift, lower, slowly, like you're moving through water. I'm still funneling my rib cage down and in. My upper core is helping to stabilize, create a base. The back should just be relaxed. There's no tension. We're not pressing it. We're just scooping the deep abdominals. And hold here. Keeping those legs into center line. We're going to keep the left where it is. The right knee is going to rotate out to the side and come back in. To control this movement, I want you to find your sits bones. So these bones in the bottom of your butt, when you sit on a surface, draw them towards each other. It's just an activation. It's not a gripping. We just want to activate those deep muscles in your hip, your external rotators, your deep gluteus medius and minimus. By stabilizing that pelvis, we can keep it stable despite our leg movements. We're still scooping, we still have that powerhouse on. We're still funneling the rib cage down and in. And hold here. Take your arms straight, thumbs to the ceiling. We're going to lift up just to the ceiling. Make little tiny circles. Bring some awareness to the muscles around the shoulder blades. I want you to feel those muscles control the movement. Even though our hands are moving, the muscles in the back are the driver. Let's change direction. Also think about turning out slightly in your joint. So rather than our palms and elbows rotating inwards, rotate them outward from the shoulder joint. So we want to feel openness there, so all the structures have space, creating space in the joints. Let them sing. Now we'll take our arms, raise them overhead to the wall behind you. Your natural tendency might be to let the rib cage pop and the back lift behind you. Pull it down. So that funneling of the ribs we talked about, really bring them in and down while you reach in opposition towards the wall. Feel that stretch through the sides and your back. Now bring your arms down, keep those shoulders wide, don't let them round forward or lift from the floor. Again, arms lift up, reach to the wall behind you, feel that stretch, and come back down. One more time. And lower the arms. Let's tuck the chin, lengthen the neck along the floor, reach your crown to that wall behind you. With the chin tucked, we're going to lift, but I want you to lift from the breastbone. So pull the breastbone in towards your spine and start lifting up bone by bone through your vertebrae, just to the base of the shoulder blades. We don't want to go too high. It's not a strain. It's a activation of the muscles making that lift happen. And now we're going to reverse. While you reverse, press your armpits to the hips to try to help you open up each vertebrae one by one. Head is last. So again, like links in the chain, we're going to pull up, driving from that breastbone, and lower back down, bone by bone. We're still scooping with the powerhouse. Legs are hugging center line. One last time, press up. We're going to hold it here, prepare for 100. Knees come up into a frog, heels together, toes apart. Knees are about hip width. Straight arms, pump from the back. Inhale for 5. Exhale for 5. Keep inhaling for 5. And exhale. If this feels easy, straighten the legs, hug the inner thighs, but turn out from your hip bones. Keep inhaling. And exhale. If this still feels easy, try going a little bit lower with the legs. Be very careful with the low back. Keep scooping. Do not let it arch away from the mat. If you're arching and you can't control it, come back into frog. We're not here to hurt ourselves, but to get stronger and improve the way we move our bodies and how we function. So we do this for 10 cycles, thus the name 100. Bounce those imaginary basketballs, straight arms pumping from the back. Keep scooping in and up. Keep funneling the ribs in and down. And rest. Roll up. Hug your legs together. They're straight. We want to activate the backside to stabilize. So sits bones together. Drive the heels down into the floor and together. Arms start at the ceiling. Tuck the chin. Roll up. Coming up bone by bone. Reach to the wall in front. Finding this capital C curve, not a lowercase. We're not touching our feet. Our arms are lifted at shoulder height. Now roll back. Scoop deep. Try to open up the lower vertebrae by coming down bone by bone. It's controlled. Arms go all the way to the back wall. Again, we lift up. Exhale, reach. Inhale, roll it out like a wheel. And lift. Press those heels. Scoop the abdominals. Roll back out. Curl the tailbone under. Really get that lumbar, lower spine down first. Work your way through the spine. One more time. Exhale, reach. Our feet are flexed. They're reaching and pressing down. And lower your arms down to your side for single leg circles. Keep your left foot with the foot flexed. Soft point on the right. Lift up about 45 degrees. Press your shoulder blades into the mat. Circle and lift. Circle, lower and lift. Cross, lower and lift. We still have that turnout at the front of our hip. And reverse, lower, cross and lift. Accent on the lift. Don't wiggle through the middle. Keep scooping with the powerhouse. Lower the leg to switch sides. Lift your other foot. Soft point. Cross, lower, and lift. Keep pulling the sits bones together to help keep that pelvis stable. Last one in reverse. Lower, cross, and lift. My shoulders are still reaching wide to the sides. And lower the leg. Sit up. We'll press up with our hands to lift our hips to our feet for rolling like a ball. Now for beginners, rolling like a ball can be a challenge. It's a balance exercise as well as our core. So we want to first find that round shape of the spine. So let's start with bringing our legs together, lifting our arms and holding here just behind your thighs above the knee. Start with a straight back, curl the tailbone under, scoop, and now pull the breastbone in, funnel the ribs. Make that shape like a flattened bowl. From here, come back onto your tailbone and balance. My heels are together, toes have a soft point. Keep the elbows lifted. So we're slightly gazing downwards without over flexing the neck, that open C curve. Ready to roll? We'll go back to the shoulder blades and roll back up and hold, 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 roll back. Scoop the abdominals and hold. Careful not to throw your head up. The head stays looking slightly downward in that capital C curve. Roll back and hold, hold, hold. One last time. And hold here. Straighten the left leg, hug in the right, lay back to the base of the shoulder blades, and we'll press the right knee and switch. Going into the abdominal series, single leg stretch. So we're stretching those legs while scooping the powerhouse in and up. It's not hand over hand. Hands are separated. Last one, double knee stretch. Come into our ball, legs go up together, arms overhead, arms around the sides while you wrap it back in. Reach out and away and scoop and back in. Reach while scooping and funneling those ribs. Two more. Good, and lay back. Good job. Let's come up. Spine stretch forward. Feet are open to the width of the mat, inside edge. Feet are flexed, so our heels are reaching to the front. Arms are here, shoulder height, shoulder width. Take a good breath in, stack the spine, and now exhale, reach to the front wall. Inhale, stack from the bottom up, like a brick wall, building it from the base up. Again, exhale, reach, keep the shoulders down away from the ears. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach. Inhale, lift. Press your armpits down to the hips. Grow taller through your crown. One more time. Exhale, reach, scoop. Inhale, perch on those sits bones and grow taller. Arms out to your sides for saw. Twist to the right. Fold forward. Saw the pinky toe with the pinky finger. Inhale, lift arms wide and twist. Reach. 2, 3. Inhale, lift and twist. Back arm is lifted, reaching. Inhale, lift, twist, exhale, reach. Center, twist. One last time. Left and reach. Back to our center. Lower your arms, feet together. Roll it out. We're going to turn onto our stomachs for swan prep. Even though we're in prone on our tummy, we still want to scoop the abdominals. Heels are together into center line, toes apart. Hands are under our shoulders. Funnel the rib cage down and in. Really important for this exercise. Start with your forehead resting on the mat. Pull your breastbone into your spine. Open up the shoulder blades at the back. Now start to lift that head up. Roll away imaginary marble with your nose. And reach your chest to the horizon. Shoulders wide. Lower back down, bone by bone, in reverse, to open up those upper vertebrae. Again, inhale, lift, scoop the abdominals, sits bones together, helps you lift, press through the arms, open the chest. Now look to the right, roll your chin and around to the left, back in and down around to the right, straight ahead, lower the chest, bone by bone by bone. Inhale, scoop and lift, look to the left. Chin in and around to the right, back in and around to the left, straight ahead. Lower your chest first, work your way up the spine, head is last. And press back into child's pose. Now this isn't passive. This is a stretch, but we're still working. So if your knees hurt you, you can open it up or just don't go back so far. But if you can, come together. We're going to reach our arms out ahead of us. We're going to inhale, expand the rib cage. We want to open up where those ribs attach to our vertebrae and mobilize them. And now exhale, funnel the ribs down and in, flatten your thoracic spine or your mid back. Again, inhale, expand the rib cage. Exhale, funnel the ribs. Getting a little bit of thoracic mobility, which can often, stiffness there, be a cause of low back pain and neck problems. One more time, inhale, and exhale, press down. Now we'll come up, place both hands together, turn onto your hip, and we'll lay onto our back for shoulder bridge prep. Our feet are hugging together, knees together into that center line. Feel your back imprint into the mat, shoulders wide, palms down. Now, press through the 2 points of your bridge, your feet and your shoulder blades and arms. Press the hips up. Now melt down the chest first. We want to lower the rib cage, come down one vertebrae at a time, lowering that tailbone last. And again, inhale, press up. Try to get that nice straight line between the knees and shoulders and melt down your ribs. Come down bone by bone. Keep those knees hugging together. Everybody likes to open the knees. No, no, no. Hug that center line. Keep your pelvic floor active. And again, press up. Sink in your chest. Pull that breastbone in. Funnel the rib cage down. Scoop the abdominals. Curl your tailbone under. Inner thighs are hugging. One more time. Last one. And melt bone by bone. We're mobilizing those vertebrae so we have more mobility in our back. Good. And we're going to let our legs go out straight. Lift one arm, turn onto your side facing me for a side kick series. You want to land yourself on the inside edge of your mat. Beginners can go here or here if your neck bothers you. Be careful that you're not bending your head forward. Our neck should be in a straight line with our shoulders and our hips. Hand here is in front, legs come to the front corner of your mat. Bottom leg has a flexed foot, it's reaching your heel. Top leg, a little bit of turnout in that hip, open up the hip so we work in the right muscles. Palm firmly planted and do up your buttons. Imagine snap buttons through your core from front to back, snapping together. 2 kicks to the front, 2 kicks to the back. Kick, 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 kick. Last one, join the bottom leg, lift the leg straight up, and now float it down, reach it out. And accent on the lift, and then lower, 2, 3. Inhale, lift, exhale, lower, 2, 3. Like circles, tiny circles, brushing your ankles, and reverse your circles. And now lift that leg up, bend your knee, plant it in front, thread your front arm in and around to anchor it down. So I'm holding onto my shin. Take your bottom leg back, reach your heel to the front door. So flex, inner thigh lifts up and lower. Now straighten that knee. Really contract the front of your thigh and reach your heel to that front wall. Now lift and circle. Pull those sits bones together and scoop. It'll help you give the lift and reverse your circles. Imagine you're serving a tiny little coffee cup on the inside of your ankle. You don't want it to fall. And now lower the leg, let both legs go out. We'll turn onto your stomach for beats on belly. Hand over hand, rest your forehead. Our Pilates stance, heels together, toes apart. Scoop, sits bones together, lift your legs, straight knees. Now beat them out and in, side and in. For 10. Just inhale and exhale naturally. Still funnel that rib cage down and in. And rest. Scoop the stomach. Sits bones together, lift the thighs and beat. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and rest. We'll turn to the other side. Let's go this way. So we're still facing each other. Again, line your spine up. Feet come to the front corner of your mat. You're lined up on the inside edge, back edge of your mat. Plant your hand, do up your buttons. top leg, kick, kick to the front, kick, kick to the back. Last one, and lift straight up, and reach and float it out, and lift, and lower, lower, and lift, and little circles. And reverse your circles. And now lift the leg straight up, plant your foot, spread your arm, pull your leg back, lift from the inner thigh, and lower, and lift. Reach that leg, will you scoop it in up, lift, and circle to the front. And reverse your circles. And lower the leg. We're going to finish off with one last exercise called seal. It's another rolling exercise. Legs are bent, let the knees open, soles of your feet are together. Dive your hands inside under your ankles and pull your feet up off the floor. We're balancing on that tailbone again, finding that rounded capital C curve. Look slightly down. Clap, clap 3 times with the legs. Roll to the shoulder blades, just to the base, and roll back up. Balance. Clap, clap, clap for 3, just to the base of the shoulder blades, and back up. The blades. Clap, clap, clap. And we'll balance there and release. So that was introductory with a little bit of beginners mixed in. Mat class for Pilates. I hope you liked it. You can always reach out to me if you want to learn more about Pilates. Up next, we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Linda Sherlin. She's a nurse practitioner specialized in integrative medicine and gut health. And I know that's a hot topic lots of people have questions about. So tune in at 9:30. We'll be back. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. I hope you enjoyed the mat class. And we're going to be starting shortly with Linda Sherland, as I promised, a nurse practitioner in gut health and integrative medicine. And again, I just want to remind you why we're here today. All our presenters have donated their time in hopes that you will be moved to make a contribution, and all our efforts are shared in our passion to help people get treatment, to help fund research so that people can fight blood cancer and one day end blood cancer. Okay. So let's go ahead and, oh, don't forget about our auction items. So listed below on my Facebook page, there's posted separately each individual basket, and you can see the value of the basket and read about the descriptions there. Feel free to bid all day long. The highest bidder will win the item by the end of the day. And so, yes, all proceeds will go to LLS. That's why we're not doing it outside of San Antonio. So I'm sorry, guys, but just for San Antonio only, because we don't want to have shipping costs. We want all the pennies to go to LLS and to our costs. But you can buy Fiesta Metal wherever you are in the world, and it will ship to you for free. It's only $10, and it's a token of your contribution, perhaps also a memory of a loved one or someone you know who fought blood cancer. And so please feel free, no matter where you are in the world, to purchase that on the link we've provided as well. And so let's go ahead and bring in our next guest. Good morning, Linda. Hello.
Hey, Alina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Nice to have you here with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Linda, and tell us about what you do.
Well, great. Sorry, I was not right on the screen.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm a little ahead of myself.
Okay. Well, I'm a family nurse practitioner, a certified family nurse practitioner, but I actually practice in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and with telemedicine. So
Yes.
kind of a lot of places. In Wayne, Pennsylvania, with Philadelphia Integrative Medicine, functional medicine, integrative medicine. And we can talk a little bit about what that means. It's a little bit different. I attended the fellowship in integrative medicine through the University of Arizona, Andrew Weil School of, we've changed our name. So I can Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine.
Okay.
A 2-year integrative medicine fellowship, and then I'm in the process also of being certified in functional medicine. Integrative medicine is really looking at the whole person. In conventional medicine, when I was in conventional medicine, we treat a lot by symptoms.
Right.
We're talking about gut health this morning. So you come in, you have a stomach ache, you have constipation, whatever is happening, bloating, gas, and you come in and we address that symptom. When we look from integrative medicine perspective and a functional medicine, we're looking more at the systems. And of course, the gut is a system, but the gut can also affect the brain. It can affect our emotions. We can see gut issues come out in our skin, and skin rashes and pain, joint pain, different sorts of things. And so we're thinking about it can come out or be caused or related to anxiety, related to head injuries. So we're thinking about in integrative and functional medicine, what is your whole story? What are you eating? What happens? We do look at symptoms, and we look at symptoms more as clues than something to be fixed. I think in conventional medicine, we're looking at what can we fix here and relieve and make better. And in integrative and functional medicine, we're thinking about those things as clues, and they lead us down a path to create a plan and create solutions for healing.
Right, right. That sounds wonderful. And so tell us about gut health. So what is gut health? What is good? How do you know you have good gut health, and how do you know when it's bad?
Well, that's a great question, Alina. And you have good gut health if you can eat pretty much anything you want to. You never have pain. You don't have any problems. You don't have issues with obesity, underweight, overweight, any of those things. Mostly you're just going to go about your day and eat your regular diet and not have any complaints. If you have bad gut health or more, and I sometimes kind of think about rather than good and bad, it's more on a continuum. And so there are different kinds of clues, as I said. So maybe you eat, and every time you eat, you get bloated. And you don't know why, or every time you eat, you have indigestion. Maybe you only have indigestion at night when you go to bed. Maybe you have a skin rash. Maybe you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and you have antibodies that are out of control, but you may not know that if those have not even been checked. And so that's a little bit of a difference in functional medicine, is we look at things and test things in a little bit different perspective. But generally, people who don't have good gut health, they know it.
Right.
And, I have patients that come in and they're like, I have had issues with my stomach all my life. I've been constipated all my life. And then some people, maybe something has happened and it's new. We see a real relation with some disruptions in gut health and a history of head injuries. I had a patient yesterday, and I was concerned about this and said, have you ever had a head injury? And well, no. And, car accident, have you fallen off a horse? Have you fallen down playing basketball? And she said, well, one, but not very much. I just got hit by a field hockey puck.
Oh,
Now, that sounded kind of significant to me, but I'm sure because, it didn't take her out for a few days, and maybe she didn't lose consciousness. She didn't even think about that could be an issue. It's just something, a part of her story. That's why having a person's story is so important, because we are thinking about, when you have that short visit with your physician, maybe 15 minutes, and you're just having to tell them what's wrong, and you want to get, if you get 15 minutes and you want to, just get some medicine and get out, versus being able to tell your story and talk through that. And I think that's something that we see in integrative and functional medicine, are people who feel they get to the end of the visit and say, nobody's ever listened like that.
right.
Nobody's ever believed what I've said. I know I don't feel good, but all my lab work says I'm fine. I had a colonoscopy and my gastroenterologist told me I was fine, but I know I'm not fine. I just don't feel good. And so, that's really, and so for me, Alina, when I talk with my patients, I believe that you are the expert in you.
Mm-hmm.
We form a collaboration, we form a partnership. I come with my own expertise, my background, my knowledge, my experience, but you come with you and you have all the background knowledge, you have all the experience. You know what's worked, what hasn't worked, what you've tried, what you've been told. And so my job is to listen to that and to honor that. And then begin to walk with you on a healing journey to discover what those clues are going to tell us and what sorts of things we could maybe do to help them.
Yes, that's a great answer. And you kind of answered one of my questions, which is, why should somebody see somebody in integrative health versus traditional, doctor's office visit? And I think that you just answered that very well. Is there more to that as well that you'd want to add?
Well, I think one thing I'd want to add is, we don't want to, it's not an all or none.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to discount what's happening in conventional medicine. In traditional medicine, if you need a colonoscopy, you need to go to the gastroenterologist. If you need workups, if you have a cancer diagnosis, we want you in conventional treatment. That's why it's called integrated, because it brings everything together. There is something different and I think additional that integrative and functional medicine done right, done well brings. Some people say it's kind of like going to an old-time family doctor.
Right.
Some of my older patients that remember maybe when their doctor had time to sit and to listen and talk with them and explore these things. And I think, unfortunately, we've lost that in our healthcare system now.
Yes, agreed. And so that's why I've done what I've done, as going off on your own, having that time to do exactly what you said, getting that story. That story is so revealing in terms of diagnosis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so is there room for both? People should still see the regular doctor as well as an integrative doctor or nurse practitioner?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and actually in our practice, we work more as a consultative or specialty practice.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. We work more as a consultative and specialty practice. So we do ask that people have a primary physician because we're not on call 24 hours a day.
Right.
And sometimes, maybe you have a urinary tract infection and just need to go in and have that tested, have your urine tested. We do that. We do a lot of primary care things in our office, but we want people to feel like they have a relationship with someone that can cover them if something comes up as well.
Right. Yes. And so tell us about testing in integrative medicine. What kind of tests do you do? And do you often include genetic testing? That's a really hot topic right now in health and wellness.
It is a hot topic. And so the way we work in our practice is we use conventional labs. So we might send people to a LabCorp or Quest or CPL for conventional lab testing. Insurance covers that. And if we can utilize your insurance, we certainly want to do that. Then on top of that, and there's a lot of good information to be had there. I know we're talking a little bit more about gut, but thinking about thyroid, we can get our full thyroid panel in a conventional lab and your insurance will cover it. So why not? But when we think about gut testing, we like Diagnostic Solutions, GI Map, that gives a beautiful look at what's going on in the gut, whether there are viruses or protozoa, worms, your healthy bacteria, your unhealthy bacteria, the state of your intestinal health as well. So there are these beautiful specialty tests. There is genetic testing. A lot of different companies, a lot of different people are using and interpreting genetic testing. The physician in my practice actually has a special genetics appointment where someone can do the genetics testing and then come in and have that interpreted. And our genetics give us a lot of information about foods that are going to benefit us the most, about medications, about supplements, things we absorb well, things we don't. And so there's a lot of room for that. We look at micronutrient testing to see, which looks at what's being absorbed at a cellular level. Are there any cellular deficiencies when we think about taking supplements? We don't want to just take a supplement because it's the latest thing, on Facebook or whatever. We want to know why we're taking it, what we're taking it for, that it's of value to us. There are testing for neurotransmitters, for food sensitivities. And so we combine both.
Okay. And so I guess it just depends how the person presents, what's necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Something that we really see is a big link between gut health and autoimmune disorders. So whether that's Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, any myriad of autoimmune diseases, a lot of times we will look first in the gut.
Right.
People come to us a lot. They want to get off maybe their biologic medication or see if they could reduce that. And that's another place where we think about how is conventional and integrative and functional medicine working together. It's not that all or none approach. Well, you're going to have to get off your biologic if you're going to come see us. We want people to have their rheumatologist and to have everything they can have, but we're hoping through adding some other things, maybe we can lower the need for the amount of medication they're taking. And so that's how another way that this can go hand in hand. But we look, think about autoimmune disease, if the gut is not healthy, most anything else is not going to be healthy. If the lining of the gut through inflammation and irritation is disrupted, there's this thin mucosal lining of the gut. And if that's disrupted, it's referred to a lot, as you might know, about leaky gut.
Yes.
And so what happens when there's leaky gut, the food particles and even good things, food, vitamins, things that should not be absorbed through the large intestine gets out and gets into the bloodstream, and that causes irritation. So it's kind of like if you just sat and scratched on your hand all day, it's going to get red and it's going to start to break down.
Right.
If you put some lotion on it, you probably could do that a little longer, and you've got a barrier, but that thin mucosa layer creates a barrier. When that breaks down due to inflammation, maybe there's been a viral infection, maybe there is some beneficial, even good bacteria can kind of get out of hand. And then there's opportunistic bacteria that can show up in the gut and cause problems. H. pylori, the bacteria that causes stomach ulcers.
Right.
All of these different, if it's out of balance, so much of us being in a healing space in our bodies and our mind and our spirit, everything is about being in balance.
Right.
And so if someplace the gut's gotten out of balance, then that begins to show up. There's more irritation, there's more inflammation. That's when people walk in and have these complaints, or maybe they've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, but they're not having gut complaints. Their stomach, that's not where it's showing up.
Right.
May it be showing up in their immune system or another way. And so when we begin to look, we see opportunities for healing there. And that's been a really important gut connection.
Okay. Is there a protocol? There's some questions about which tests for gut health. And I know we already covered in terms of, it depends how the patient presents or client, but a general approach when someone comes with some of the standard symptoms, do we do just blood work? Do we do a stool sample as well, or a combination of things? What's typically, yeah.
So we do lab work. Looking at like a regular metabolic panel, a complete blood count. We look at inflammatory markers like an HSCRP to, kind of to get that general overlook. But if we want to know exactly what's going on in the gut, there are really two kind of ways to look at that. One is a stool sample that you mentioned. And the other, sometimes people have different set of symptoms. Now, generally, we'll start with that stool sample, and there are different companies that make them. And so we will start with that stool sample to get that real overall look. And then there's another test. It's called for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And so SIBO. And now in my world, there's a lot of talk about SIBO, and I'm kind of a little skewed. Sometimes I think, well, doesn't everybody know about this? Isn't everybody talking about it?
Right.
But I kind of live in a different kind of world. But SIBO, that's really the one that's connected with maybe some head injuries that we see that's common in people's stories. But SIBO generally, we really question that if someone eats and right away they have bloating and gas and stomach pain, or shortly after they eat, they'll start itching or have a little rash. Then I start thinking, I wonder if this is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And that would mean some of it can even be bacteria that's in our normal flora, but it backs up into the small intestine. And so what happens there, we're getting the food that's not been broken down yet, gone through the small intestine and into the large intestine. So if this bacteria that doesn't belong gets into the small intestine, the food that's coming through out of our stomach is kind of like the all-you-can-eat buffet. And it just goes crazy. It's like no holds barred. And so that bacteria overgrows. And so that testing, actually conventional gastroenterologists are doing that. Insurance is covering it. It's done with a 3-hour breath test. It can be a home test. These tests can be mailed to people in their home.
Great.
They do the test at home and then they send it back in. And so that can be a challenge sometimes to treat and a little more resistant. You can use conventional antibiotics to treat that. We also use herbal antimicrobials to treat that as well.
Right. There's been some talk recently too about not just the microbiome in terms of bacteria, but the microbiome in terms of yeast and fungus. And so how can we differentiate what's wrong, which microbe is the problem?
Well, when we look at a stool test result, we have a section on candida or yeast. And so we have a full section on that where we can look and see. There are also some other kind of tests, organic acid tests, where you can see the presence of yeast there. We like to really, we use both tests, but to really be definitive about how much is there and specifically what we're treating, that fungus and the yeast can also back up into the small intestine. So at that point, instead of SIBO, we call it SIFO, or small intestinal fungal overgrowth. And so then we can use conventional antifungals and the same thing. Some of the the nice thing about the botanical antimicrobials is they treat both fungal infections and bacterial infections.
Right. Okay, great. And so what do you recommend people do to promote good gut health? That, people talk about probiotics, but there's so many products out there. What actually works? What's worth doing?
Well, it's interesting. That's such a great question, Alina, so one thing, when we look at the microbiome, we can see where there are deficiencies, where there's too much or too little. And that can be, a deficiency. It can just be what we call dysbiosis. It's just not right yet. And from that gives us a good idea on what we might want to supplement with a probiotic. One thing I wanted to recommend today to people when they're thinking about just that question you had, what probiotic would I get? There is a website called Probiotic Advisor. And Dr. Jason Hawrelak, and this has been his life's work. And so you can actually go on there, get a free trial, put in your symptoms, and it'll tell you what foods you might find this in, if there are any. And it looks for the US, Canada, and Australia. He's from Australia. So it says what foods you could get, and it says what supplements you could get, and it would give you the names of the different probiotics that would benefit you, and then what products those are in.
What a great resource. Can you repeat that? I'm going to type it in the...
It's called the Probiotic Advisor. And you can get a probiotic advisor.
Got
And
it.
you can get a 1-day free trial. So, I mean, your symptoms. If this is a concern for you, your symptoms, what's going on. So you go in there and you can look, and it'll literally, if there is something recommended for that. So I think I would suggest that rather than saying go buy A, B, or C.
Right.
He's got great information. He's got blogs. And I think because it's so specific, because there are some probiotics that if you had SIBO and you took certain probiotics, it would send you through the roof. Because basically probiotics are just bacteria. And so you're putting bacteria on top of bacteria in the small intestine. And so people are like, these probiotics don't work. I felt miserable. Well, that's what happens. Think of probiotics as a therapeutic intervention. And so you want to use the correct one. And so I think Dr. Harwalek has such a great website to help us figure that out.
Right.
But I think more importantly, when we think about gut health, kind of my preaching to patients is plants, plants, and more plants.
Yay.
Yeah. Dr. Harwalek would tell you, you need 40 different plants in the course of a week. Now, that's not like, and it can be, like I think about, in our conventional farming, we generally like have one kind of cabbage or one kind of lettuce, or maybe those aren't good because we can get varieties of it, but one kind of carrot. You don't know what kind of carrot you're eating. But, when I was a little girl and we go get seeds for the garden, you could get Kentucky Wonder green beans, you could get bush green beans, you could get all these different varieties. And we don't have that so much in the grocery store. With apples, you could do that. Actually, I said cabbage, apples, cabbage, and lettuce. All you can get different varieties. So it's not 40 different, say you'd have to have apples, oranges, lettuce, and cabbage, but 40 different varieties. So maybe 5 different kinds of apples. So instead of just getting one brand of apple, get different kinds.
Right.
Mix food up. Now, something that can happen, it's people with gut dysbiosis, they eat those plants and it hurts, or they get very gassy and it's not comfortable. There's one of those clues.
Right.
It's time to look at that more, because if you're having to restrict your diet, that's often what happens. I've had one patient was so bad, she came to me and about all she could eat was bone broth. Now, an interesting piece to that was during her work time. When she went on vacation with her family, she could eat anything she wanted.
Wow, that stress factor is so number one for many things.
The stress factor is like in everything. And that's the whole piece of integrative medicine. If we don't take care of our whole self, even something simple, Alina, is when you sit down to eat, 3 belly breaths.
Right.
Just 3 belly breaths switches our brain and our body into that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system that we need. Because sometimes maybe there's not a big dysbiosis. Maybe we've just got so much stress that when we sit down to eat, we don't have access to our digestive enzymes. Our hydrochloric acid is low, so we can't even start that digestive process. Smelling food, looking at the colors of the food. So when we go back to plants, having that plate that's just like, looks like a artist palette. I think where I grew up, we were rice farmers. So we ate rice. We had like fried meat with gravy, rice. Now my mom didn't have a garden. So in the summer, my memories are slices of fresh tomatoes and cantaloupe and green beans. And so our plates did look very colorful. And, I would say to people, this doesn't mean you have to go just eat a plant-based diet, that you never eat animal products. I think that also is a balance as well. What's best for you? What's best for your body? And everyone is different. So I think that, but because that's what the bacteria feed on, are those plants.
Right.
And so they need the fiber in the plants. And what our body doesn't use, the gut thrives on. Also, fermented foods. Fermented foods are so great. So, sauerkraut, but when you're eating fermented foods, it can be, fermented beets, anything, kimchi, yogurt is a fermented food. The little Yakult yogurt drinks,
Right.
those can be beneficial for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But again, if there's overgrowth in there and you eat a fermented food, it can be aggravating. It doesn't mean it's a bad food or it's not good for you.
Right.
That's a clue. It's like, oh, that doesn't feel very good. Something must be wrong. And there's a better chance there's something going on in the gut rather than there's something wrong with the food.
Right.
Cruciferous vegetables can be irritating to people that have hydrogen sulfide, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They're sulfur vegetable. So if those sulfur vegetables, which are so good for us, so good for our digestion, so good in the prevention of breast cancers and our estrogen causing cancers, so healthy, but often people can't eat them, and it's about the dysbiosis.
Right. Right.
And when
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, when you're thinking about fermented
Yes.
food, like something like I grew up on sauerkraut, I actually canned sauerkraut. But what we did when we canned it was we killed all the bacteria in it.
Right.
So if you're going to eat those fermented foods, don't cook them. You could warm them a little bit. And you also don't have to eat a lot. 1 or 2 tablespoons on a salad or as a side is plenty.
Okay. That's good to know. Really, really great information there. And Linda, tell us where everybody can find you. So I know that you're based in Pennsylvania, but from Texas, and right now practicing in both states, licensed in both.
Yes, I am licensed in both. I have, my website is Linda, Lynda, lindasherlin.com is my personal website that probably needs a little updating, but you can find out and learn more about me. There are a lot of recipes on there, some different things. And my practicing website, and to reach out, we do offer 20-minute consults. And thanks to, I don't know if I should say that quite like that, but because of, I will say, the changes that have happened with all of the coronavirus, that now telemedicine, insurances are reimbursing for telemedicine, and we've got a lot more leeway to practice. So our practice is fully converted to telemedicine. So that would be, you can go to info@philly-im.com and ask to set up a 20-minute consult with me. Or you can just go to philly-im.com and schedule that online. And
sorry, I'm trying to write it. philly-im.com.
I guess I could have put that in the chat for you.
That's okay.
And so, yeah, I would, that's really the preferred way. If you want to maybe read more about, a little bit more about me, you might see that on lindasherlin.com, but to actually access me and talk about an appointment or talk about your health, if integrative and functional medicine might be a good fit for you, go to philly-im.com. There's actually, can I make a little bitty plug?
Yes, absolutely.
If you go to phillyim.com, and there's going to be a wonderful talk by our physician assistant on estrogen dominance in men and women.
Oh.
A very interesting topic. And Zoe Phillips will be presenting that Wednesday night. It will be 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, but 6:30 here in Texas. And it's estrogen dominance for men and women both. That could be a whole nother day-long workshop.
Yeah, yes. What day is that again, Linda?
Pardon?
Which day is that again?
It's going to be Wednesday. Is that the 20th?
Yes. Okay, great.
Wednesday the 20th. It's free. It's a webinar. You can go on and register. I think we have over 500 people already registered. It will actually be a 2-part talk. It'll be 1 part this month, 1 part next month. So just, love and bring in information. Sign up for our newsletter there. Reach out, be in touch, however I can help.
Great, Linda. Thank you so much. I could talk on and on with you all day about this stuff.
You're so
Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's been my pleasure, Alina. You're so welcome. And thanks
Okay.
for the Facebook Live, the webathon, and what you're doing for leukemia. I just lost my brother-in-law in the end
I
of
know.
February.
Yeah.
Leukemia, so I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Yes. My pleasure. My pleasure. We'll
Yeah.
be in touch, Linda. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was really a great interview with Linda, and I hope all of you really enjoyed that information that was shared. I did share some links in the show notes or in the comment feed so that people can refer back to that. And again, Linda, as she said, she has a real personal reason for being involved today and sharing her knowledge and time. And so we hope that you will be moved to make a contribution. We know it's COVID-19 and the pandemic is affecting everyone, and many people are struggling financially. But as little as $5 or $10 makes a difference. It may help a person get to their treatment. Every little bit adds up to help people pay for their treatments and to fund research that is saving lives. So please go ahead on the links and make a contribution. And so next on that topic, I'm going to have Jessica D'Souza from LLS come in because she can say it better than anybody else on all the great things that LLS is doing. So let's go ahead, and we're a little bit early, but that's okay. She's here. So let's bring her in. Hi, Jessica. Good morning.
Hi, Alina. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and for, I know you're going to do a great job in telling us all the wonderful things that LLS is doing to fight blood cancer.
Of course, yes. My name is Jessica D'Souza. I'm the Senior Campaign Director for the Man and Woman of the Year campaign at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, where I have been for just over 10 years. So the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, or LLS, is at the forefront of the fight to cure cancer. We are the largest nonprofit dedicated to creating a world without blood cancers. And since 1949, we have invested nearly $1.3 billion in groundbreaking research, pioneering many of today's most innovative approaches. Cancer is a heck of an opponent. It's a bully, but we aren't afraid of a fight. It's elusive, but our focus never fades. It's deadly, but we are known cancer killers. Since 1949, we've pioneered groundbreaking research that leads us to believe we will find the cures for cancer in our blood. We were born to defeat this opponent, and as you can see on my virtual background, beating cancer is in our blood. So the Man and Woman of the Year campaign, just so everybody knows what you're participating in, brings together local community leaders like yourself, who over the course of 10 weeks raise as much money as they can. The candidate who raises the most is named the Man and Woman of the Year. But what we are most proud of is what the amazing individuals like yourself can do together. And in San Antonio, we have raised over $11 million through this campaign to fund blood cancer research and patient services.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to see, again, what a group of people in one area can do together, can accomplish. And like you had just said, even a dollar makes a difference, and it really does. The money adds up. And so it's really incredible to see what people do. And I know you are running your campaign in memory of a good friend, Ty.
Yes.
Ty's also a dear friend of LLS. He's been a longtime volunteer, very integral in the growth of the Man and Woman of the Year campaign. His wife, Kathy, is also our Chief Relationship Officer at LLS. Unfortunately, Ty lost his battle with acute myeloid leukemia in March. So I want to tell you a little bit about what LLS is doing in that realm specifically with acute myeloid leukemia to really connect it to what you are doing so everyone can make that connection. Despite the increased survival rates for many blood cancers, AML remains the most daunting challenge. 21,000 new cases of AML are diagnosed each year. Half of those patients are over the age of 65. Only 1 in 4 AML patients continues to survive 5 years after diagnosis. AML is really hard to treat because it has many different subtypes and mutations. So the one-size-fits-all approach just does not work with AML. There have been few advancements for AML in over 40 years, and LLS aims to change that. LLS is leading a groundbreaking collaborative clinical trial targeting AML. On this trial, patients are tested for specific gene mutations, which takes up to 7 days. Patients are then assigned to the study that best fits their results. LLS is partnered with leading medical institutions, pharmaceutical companies, the FDA, a diagnostic company, and a clinical research organization. The trial has been an overwhelming success. Patients on the trial generally do better than patients who opt not to join. The patients had a lower early death rate and superior overall survival. We have proven that precision medicine can work. And that stat about having few new treatments in over 40 years, since 2017, the FDA has approved 10 new treatments for acute myeloid leukemia, and LLS helped advance all 10 of them. So while we're making incredible strides in the fight against one of the most challenging forms of blood cancer, the fact that you are running in memory of our good friend Ty Grusenbeck shows that there's still a lot more work to be done. So I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. Thank all of you who are watching for taking time to be a part of this event all day today. And just to ask you to please consider making a donation to Alina's campaign, because what she's doing really truly is making a difference. And I know a lot of people say that, but what LLS is doing is really, really incredible. And the progress we're making is staggering. And so every dollar helps, and you know, being a part of this makes a really incredible impact.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that information. And that's why I got involved with LLS. You know, when I started working with you guys a couple of years ago with the Light the Night, also running that campaign in honor of Ty, I was amazed and learned every step of the way how much you guys provide, you know, not just people getting treatment, not just the research piece that you just went in depth in, but also getting people to their treatments, supporting their families, getting information out there to people so they're not in the dark and feeling alone with that C word, you know. And it's just so amazing to see a big organization giving those dollars directly to the people instead of it sitting in administration. Like, it truly is getting to the cause with LLS.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've been here, like I said, for 10 years. It's a long time for any one person to be in really any job, especially with a nonprofit. But I do it because I know, I truly believe in what we're doing. And I know technically I'm paid to tell you that, but I wouldn't have been here for 10 years if I didn't truly believe in the mission of LLS. And it's so easy for me to talk about and to share with people because I know that we really are making that difference. And we really are, when we are fundraising and when we're out there working, it really is helping that progress. We really are making incredible strides. And even our CEO will tell you, you know, in a good year, we'd see 1 or 2 approvals by the FDA for blood cancer research. But since 2017, so that stat I shared about 10 AML treatments, since that time, we've had an overall total of 56 new treatments for blood cancer. So in a time when we would see, if it was really great time, we would see maybe 6 new treatments, we've had 56. And 49 of those LLS had a hand in funding. And so it really is pretty incredible what can be done when people come together and when people really, truly care.
Yes. And also affecting legislation. I know LLS is right now working on that piece so that we can make sure that, you know, the legislation isn't blocking donation dollars in getting to the patients and trying to improve that channel.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot that we do on the advocacy side as well. So we do have a lot of volunteer advocates who work really hard to affect that kind of legislation. So whether it's what's going on right now with COVID to make sure that patients are still being protected, or it's to work to make sure insurance plans are covering our patients and to make sure they are getting access to the treatment they need. Also making sure that, for instance, we had a really big hand in oral parity laws. So getting oral chemotherapy treatments covered the same as IV chemotherapy treatments. So we've had huge success with that right now. So we do work a lot on that patient side as well with the advocacy and also with the patient services that people offer, or that we offer to patients. So copay assistance that we disperse the financial aid that we give, the travel assistance, like you mentioned, helping people get to appointments, and then the education. So a lot of people call us just saying, hey, I've been diagnosed with a blood cancer. I don't know what to do, what's next, what to expect, who I should see, where I should go. So that is another avenue that we truly help our patients kind of navigate this new diagnosis for them.
Right. Incredible. And I know LLS also stepped up very quickly with our pandemic and COVID-19. We're social distancing right now and like in shock, where this is a new for us, but for cancer patients, this is their normal, including their loved ones that are close proximity supporting them. And they're afraid to go to the doctor's office to get their treatments because of the risks and so on. Tell us about what LLS is doing for COVID-19.
Yeah, so LLS is able to pivot pretty quickly. We have done it in the past when we've had the hurricanes hit. We've been able to pivot to offer patients some financial aid, and we did it again with COVID-19. So we have offered a patient financial aid program with some incredible partners to patients who have been affected by COVID-19. That doesn't mean they have to have been diagnosed. It just means affected, and pretty much everyone today is being affected by this, whether it's job loss or reduction or staying home with kids or losing jobs. Everyone's being affected by this. And so we have offered our patients financial aid who have been affected. And, right now the numbers keep climbing so quickly, but we have given out about $1.4 million to over 14 patients just since April 1st when we started this. So it is a really great opportunity that we are able to pivot so quickly.
Wonderful. Yes. And I'm glad you brought up Ty and Kathy and their relationship with LLS. I do plan to talk more about my why at the end of today with some photos of Ty and family and his legacy. And so thank you so much, Jessica, for being here. Is there more that you want to add?
Absolutely. I think that's it for me right now. I know we'll be back later this afternoon.
Yes.
Then I'll talk about our pediatric initiative as well.
Great.
So to share a little bit more about what's going on with that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Jessica, and we'll see you at 5:30.
Thank you so much, Alina.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I'm going to shift gears here and show some slides of everything that Jessica was talking about. Hi, everybody. I'm back, and soon we'll be admitting our next guest, Dr. Dina Gotia-Leos. And I just want to, again, bring our attention to why we're here today for LLS, to raise money to help treat and people fighting blood cancer and fund research. And we've got links here attached at the above and in the comments below for donation links to make it easy for you. We've got some great auction items, some gift baskets. Please go ahead and make a bid directly in the comment section for San Antonio area only, so that we don't waste money on shipping and all the money we raise goes to LLS. Thank you so much. And let's go ahead and admit our next guest.
Thank you for inviting me. This is pretty exciting and for a great cause. So I am an internist here in San Antonio, and I am part of a group that is one of the longest standing internal medicine and family practice groups called San Antonio Medical Associates. We were housed at the NICS for many, many years, actually decades, but recently have transferred over to the Quarry and are now in affiliation with Methodist Hospital Care System.
Great.
And we provide internal medicine and family practice care. It is comprised of myself, as well as Dr. Manuel Boat, DO, he's a DO actually, and nurse practitioner Cheryl Collins, who's joined us last year.
Great. Okay, and so right now during this pandemic and COVID-19, we're opening up a little bit. So people can come to the office now. What kind of things can people come to the office for now?
So as Linda Sherman was saying, we really converted to telemedicine, which has been a wonderful tool to use during this time. However, and it's actually amazing how many things you can treat and diagnose and assist with in that manner. At this time, though, there are certain cases where you just really need to examine them closer. Abdominal pain, rashes can be a stickler, or certain treatments such as therapeutic joint injections. So in certain circumstances, we are considering those kind of patients coming in. A lot of times we'll either assess them already by telemedicine. If it doesn't get better, then we'll ask them to come in. And then some practices are doing it. There's various ways of implementing this. One is the patient that you really feel that you need to have your hands on and do a complete physical on them, or actual therapeutic treatment. And then there's those that are healthy and are in need of their routine physical and advice, not only regarding COVID matters, but also vaccination, preventive care. And so some offices are also implementing that, and of course being very cautious. You stay in the car. There's no waiting room anymore. You stay in the car, and they call you in, screen you with a temperature, put you in a separate room, and obviously the sick and the well are very much separated.
That's good to know. Interesting. And so what kind of things are really, warning signs or red flags that people should not ignore, and definitely should be calling their primary care doctor, such as yourself?
So with this, in terms of COVID, I'll start there. As this has evolved, we found various symptomatology with this. I think initially it was cough and fever were the big signs that you might have COVID. Then we learned that there was this loss of smell that could help you determine whether this was allergies, cold, COVID. And now we're seeing various symptoms. There's actually people who have no symptoms. There are people who have gastrointestinal symptoms with diarrhea. And there's been some reports of just confusion, complete confusion where they appear like they've had a stroke, and it turns out it's actually COVID. And so a lot of these symptoms can be mild, and we generally have been asking people to call us and just kind of screen them and assist them and give them direction. But one of the things that we tell everyone, if we think you have it and we're putting you in isolation at home, or you think you have it and are self-isolating, it's shortness of breath is the big one. If you start to get shortness of breath, that is not a good sign, and that requires emergent care. Other things to think about is confusion. If your loved one is starting to appear confused or really somnolent, hard to wake up, they're sleeping a lot, that's another concern. And chest pain. Chest pain can be an indication of difficulty breathing. Interestingly enough, with COVID, we've seen that some people have been sitting in the emergency room talking, alert, with a very low oxygen. So we do want you to pay attention to these other symptoms, such as chest pain, somnolence. And another thing to consider is a bluish tinge to the lips or to the fingernails, because there have been people with a very low oxygen, fully alert, not feeling short of breath, but that's a good sign that they are not getting the required oxygen that's necessary. And again, these all are the ones where you need to go to the emergency room. Put a face mask on. We always tell you, put a face mask on and then go.
Okay, great. And then outside of COVID-19 symptoms that are serious, just are other types of medical situations that, because people right now are afraid to go to the office and they're avoiding it, but there are certain things that they definitely need to come to the office for. What would those signs be?
That could be a multitude. If you're having chest pain, if you're having swelling in one leg, if you're having terrible headaches, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea that is not getting better, that would definitely, those are issues that need to be addressed in person. And then, of course, I just want to also state that the importance of other symptoms that are available through telemed, anything else. And if your doctor sees you through a video and determines, they can pretty much tell, oh, this isn't working out, you need to come in.
Okay, great. Good to know. And so now with the COVID testing site that we have in the city, there's a few. What do you recommend people do if they think they have the virus? Should they call their doctor and ask for advice, or should they just go ahead and take the initiative to go to the test center?
That's a great question. And there's a couple things that you can do. Yes, sure. You can call the office. I think most offices are trained on how to screen those calls and give people good advice and direction. But in San Antonio, we have a really good resource, sanantonio.gov, and it's a website that provides a lot of information about the city. It changes daily, which is why I really like people to look at it. And it has this great screening tool. So the minute you put that site in, it pops up. In the middle is a tool that says self-screening. You press that button and it'll walk you through your symptoms. And at the end, it'll tell you, yes, you should be screened. And now things have changed. So now you can be screened even if you don't have symptoms, but this was just recently. So up to now, you could put that in. It would tell you if you would qualify to be screened. And the great thing about it is it's updated daily. So it'll tell you exactly where to go. So if you have symptoms, you can go to these locations. And these locations, this is where you can do it for free. This is where, in this location, you would need a doctor's script, but you can use your insurance. And in this where the physician would have to see you. So it's really detailed and gives you plenty of options that are available in the city. So that's a great resource, sanantonio.gov.
I put it in the comment section so people can check there for that. Thank you for that resource. And so when people do have it, but they're not ill enough to be hospitalized and they're just, quarantining at home, is it still the 14 days that are recommended? How long do people, avoid contact? How do they manage that?
So there's various answers to this depending on whether you've been tested or not. If you haven't had a test, but you really have all the symptoms, then the recommendation is to stay home for 14 days and really not venture out until 14 days, and then not venture out until you've been fever-free for 72 hours without any type of medication that would lower your temperature like Tylenol. And also be sure that your cough has improved, because cough is a great way of spreading it. And still wear a mask if you have until the cough is completely resolved, obviously. And we want to encourage everybody to wear a mask outside. If you were tested and it is positive and you are at home and you're stable, then the current recommendation, and this is a bit interesting, is again the same application of no fever for 72 hours and an improvement in cough. You really do want to stay home for 10 days at least, but the other caveat to this is ideally you would have 2 negative swabs 24 hours apart before actually going back to work.
Right, because we've heard cases in the news where people tested negative and then the fourth test, they were positive. So multiple tests.
And that does come to some of the testing. Some of the testing is you do the best you can. Right now, a lot of the tests can take up to 2 to 5 days. And the rapid test, the one that's 15 minutes, does have some false negatives to it.
Right. So is the PCR not as good as the antigen, or they both have issues, or?
They both have their own issues and they're very different. So the swab is what you're testing for to see if you actively have the illness. And then the antigen is a test done to see if you have created the antibodies. In other words, you have been exposed to it and your body has created this thing called an antibody, which shows that you are now have recovered from it. And there's two types of different antibodies. The IgG is the one that would really tell you, yes, I've recovered from this and my body has created this immunity to that at this time. However, the problem with this, and this is all, this is all so new in medicine, and thank goodness we have all these physicians and researchers and technicians out there working on this. But the caveat to that is that that does not give you, and this is very important, you cannot be reassured that you will not get it again.
Right.
So this virus is very, like all viruses, they're smart and they mutate. So I just want to be sure that people don't have a false sense of reassurance. Oh, I'm fine. I'm never going to get this. I can move on.
Yes, excellent point. And in terms of over-the-counter things people can take when they are ill, but not ill enough to be in the hospital, they're ill at home and waiting it out. So to manage their symptoms, are there any things that aren't safe? Ibuprofen was in the news a month ago as not to be taken.
True. They talked about ibuprofen and dextromorphan, which is a cough suppressant, in terms of avoiding those. And then recent information said, well, maybe not, maybe that wasn't accurate, but still recommending Tylenol really for your aches and body pains. And you just want to be sure Tylenol does have a daily limit. So you don't want to take more than 3,000 milligrams in a 24-hour period.
Okay, great. And how do we know if you're staying at home, the disease is progressing? I mean, I think you've touched on some of the serious signs. So the shortness of breath would be one, blueness in your fingertips and mouth. Anything else that people would know that things are maybe going downhill?
Those are really the main signs. Some confusion, if you're sitting reading something and your just thought process isn't there. Family members notice that you're a little bit imbalanced, then it's time to go in.
Right. So it sounds like it wouldn't be a good idea to just drive yourself to the hospital or ER.
No, definitely not.
So you want to have somebody take you or call your 911?
Absolutely.
Basically.
If somebody could take you or call 911, they are prepared. They come in, they wear masks, and they will take good care of you. We have great paramedics in the city.
Yes.
And when
Great.
you go to the emergency room, a lot of times the loved one is not allowed to come in, your family member, and so they'll have to sit outside.
Okay. And blood clots have come into the limelight with the virus. That's been more common or more likely in younger people rather than older people, though it can be possible in all. What do we know about the blood clotting issue with COVID-19?
So this is something that in March, we really didn't understand and didn't know. And there was a physician, I can't remember what city he was in April, who noted this and was giving some anti-thrombotic therapy to see if it would help, and then kind of progressed worldwide. Mm-hmm. And so we do recognize now that in some people, and there's no clear cut of who's higher risk. If you have diabetes, this is what's going to happen to you. That we don't have that information, but you get microclots in the arteries, just little microclots, and that is what we think is really triggering the the lack of oxygen in the body and the shortness of breath. And so initially, a lot of people were placed on ventilators, and then they found different ways of positioning them to get the oxygen better, but it was still a quandary, why aren't they ventilating well? And so recognizing that, they're doing additional therapies with blood thinners, but also another interesting thing that has come in terms of treatment is for those who are severely ill, is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, which is where you actually connect an artery in the vein in the body and you remove the blood and oxygenate it in a machine and then bring it back into the body. And this will give the heart and the lungs a rest. This is kind of also used similar to what's used when people have a bypass surgery.
Right.
And so they are using that in the very ill as well to get the adequate oxygenation, because we know that that's a real problem when people are in the ICU.
Right. Very interesting. They've talked about rashes in kids perhaps being that microclotting under the skin rather than a true rash.
Yeah, it's Kawasaki's, it's a syndrome where the arteries get inflamed. And so you see this rash appear. And what they've seen in children, and this was first identified, I think, in New York City a few weeks ago, is this was after they'd been exposed and recovered. And weeks later, it was a delayed reaction, and it's an inflammatory reaction. It's very serious, and as of last week, had 5 children pass from this.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and then there's another finding that we're seeing. They're calling it COVID toes. And this is where you get a little rash around the toes. And this one seen in adults. And that's another sign that physicians are using to determine whether you have it. And things have changed. You know, initially we didn't have testing abilities. Back in March and even in April, it was very limited who could be tested. And so we were trying to determine, do you have allergies? Do you have cough and these milder symptoms, or is this COVID? And so we use things like the lack of smell, the headaches, the body aches to determine what the chances were. And then this rash on the toes is a newer identifying factor.
Okay. So that would be one sign. What would be some other signs of blood clots that might be more serious? I mean, you and I know, but for the average public.
Well, really with blood clots, a lot of times people think of blood clots starting in the leg and leg swelling, but in this case, it's really not presenting that way. It's really shortness of breath.
Okay.
Really shortness of breath, looking at the color of the lips. When they start to turn blue, that's a big sign.
Okay, great. And I do know that they're working hard on a vaccine. Have you gotten any news as a physician on updates and how we're coming along with that?
So there's several companies in the US who have been authorized to start to work on this. And a recent update, I was looking at this morning, is not likely to be available in the fall.
Okay.
So a few months. And the other thing is we're in a different world now. So previously when we would develop vaccines, there was rigorous research, trials. The shingles vaccine, for example, wonderful vaccine, but rigorous trials for years done. We don't have that luxury with this. And so we're going to find that when we do have these come out, we may have some post-marketing reactions. So that's something that's going to be new to us as well. However, I think everybody in the community, in the scientific community, in the medical community, realize that we really need to act fast as we can. There will be some caveats to that in the end, but unlikely to be available within the next 3 months was
Okay.
what I was researching this morning.
Okay, great. That's good news. And so in terms of insurance, do people need to worry about, getting treatment covered and their insurance covering COVID-19 and all the complications involved medically?
That's a great question. And it's definitely dependent on your insurance plan. I will tell you that most plans now have waived the copay for office visits, whether it be through telemed or in person that are related to COVID. Also waive the fee for testing, that they'll cover the COVID testing. That being said, as far as hospitalization, if you're hospitalized, and that can be quite expensive. I have not seen that they have done anything in terms of waiving your out-of-pocket deductible. Okay. And I was actually reading an article about this. A gentleman in Italy compared to a lady here in the States. Mm-hmm. And they both went to the hospital. They were both very ill. They both required ICU treatment and vent management. And however, when they came out, the man in Italy had a minimal cost out of pocket, and the person here, it was an enormous out of pocket cost.
Right.
And so that's something that we'll have to see what occurs down the line with the insurance carriers here in the US.
Okay. Thank you for your comments on that. And I want to ask you one last thing. So where do people find you for your services? You mentioned earlier, but just so they can remember.
Sure. So San Antonio Medical Associates, located at the Quarry, right between Salata, everybody knows Salata, and the emergency room. And it is the 3 of us, and we are open Monday through Friday for any of your health needs. We focus not only on diagnosis and management and treatment, but also on preventive care, well-being, which kind of also I just want to touch upon.
Yes, please.
The other big issue that's going on now is just stress, anxiety, depression. A lot of people are out of work, the bills are piling up, or they already had an underlying anxiety. And we can see that the sales of alcohol in the US is skyrocketing right now. And we're trying to really focus on helping people use some better coping techniques, exercise. A lot of people are working at home, and when I talk to them, they're sitting in one room for hours and trying to get, say in the morning, start off your morning in the backyard, sit in a chair, get some sun, have your coffee out there. During your every hour, go outside for a walk. It is safe to go outside in your neighborhood.
Right.
Put a mask on, walk around, get some sun, walk your dog. And if you can, do some exercises on YouTube. There's yoga, there's meditation apps out there that I highly recommend just to focus on deep breathing and relaxation while we all go through this. So that's a big
Sure.
key point that I'd like to make too, the importance of mental health.
Okay, great. And any comments just quickly before we go about improving our immune system? So everything you said, of course, affects the immune system just now, those comments. And then sleep, right? We need sleep to keep our immune system functioning well.
Absolutely. And this is where I think different techniques that you can use to calm your brain down when you're going to sleep. Avoiding caffeine after 2 p.m. Avoiding alcohol. It can lead to hot flashes in women and just disrupted sleep. Also, there's soundscapes that you can use, ocean sounds when you're falling asleep, reading in bed, avoiding the light of your phone or your iPad, not a great idea. Make sure the room is nice and cool so that you're bundled up. And a lot of use that I'm trying to have people implement in terms of the meditation apps, where if you wake up, you can't fall asleep, listen to a story on your phone. It can lull you to sleep, or the rain sounds, also deep breathing. For those who have their favorite prayer, they can repeat that over and over again just to calm the brain down to induce sleep, because sleep is incredibly important during this time, during the evening, of course. And then the importance of exercise. I can't understate that 20 minutes of a nice, quick, fast walk, even that can really make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. And I love your comment about lulling you to sleep with a story. I got in.
Works really well.
It does. And I have this app for free right now. It's called Headspace. It's available for free during COVID-19 for healthcare workers, because obviously stress is very real for us on the other side. And so it's an app that can give you exercise and meditation, breathing techniques, noting exercises so that you don't perseverate and stress about things. But it has like these sleep casts where they tell you a little story and it just helps you drift off.
It really does. I've actually used it myself when I wake up at 3 a.m. worrying about a patient. I've done that. And there's another one called Calm. I think that's the one I've been using. And it even has stretching on there. And
Great.
the ones that I haven't used that I hear are good is Shut Eye, which I think is free, and Insight, which I haven't used, and that one's free also. I haven't played around with those yet. So highly recommended. And also take advantage of YouTube. There's a lady called Adrienne who does yoga and meditation. She resides in Austin. That's another source. And you can pick a 15-minute class, 10-minute class to keep yourself focused.
Yes, all very good advice. Well, thank you so much, Dina. It was a pleasure to have you with us this morning. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for having me. This is a wonderful cause. I fully support what you're doing, and I hope that we can get some donations in for you.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
the site, obviously.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Okay, that was wonderful and really good advice and information about COVID-19 and how to manage in our current situation. The information is changing daily, so it's good to have a finger on the pulse from the experts who are in the know. So thank you, Dina, for sharing all that information with us. And so I'll be bringing in soon, in about 5 minutes, our next guest. It's Amelia Jimenez. She is a nurse practitioner and she specialized in women's health. So she'll be talking about women's health issues and everything that we might want to know about that during this time as well. So I want to bring your attention again to our fundraiser. So if you're enjoying all the content here today, donated generously by our experts and this afternoon by our artists, we thank them, and they would love for you to, in return, contribute to our cause. We all are here because we share a passion. We care about people fighting cancer, specifically blood cancer. And the research that comes out of research for blood cancer often benefits other types of cancers. So it really does help a lot of people, not just people fighting blood cancer. So please donate. I know that it's financial times, difficult for many people, but if we are still eating out from time to time, consider donating that cost of one meal out to us instead, to LLS here today. We do also have a state challenge this weekend where every campaign candidate, myself included, is trying to get donations from as many states across the country as possible. So if you're not here in Texas and you're listening in, please donate. It will help us to get an incentive, and that means more money towards the cause. So I'm going to just pause for a moment here, and then we'll be back in a moment with our next guest, Amelia. Okay, so we are back, and we will be inviting into the room Amelia Jimenez, nurse practitioner. And as she talks about women's health, please feel free to donate, to make a bid on our auction items. And I hope you'll enjoy the information we're about to listen to. Yes, now we have sound. Yes. Jak czujesz, kochana? Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Please tell us about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Amelia Jimenez. I'm a women's health trained nurse practitioner. So I've been working in a clinical setting for about 8 years. I usually see patients in the clinic,
Yes.
strictly the clinic. I don't go to the hospital, but it's that's OBGYN issues. But recently we've been working on the phone, so it's been a different experience. But we are still staying in touch with patients. So
Great, great. And so tell us, what are the common conditions that you typically see? What would people come to you for?
So we, in women's health, we deal with women, conditions unique to women. So that
Sure.
could mean a condition that's specific to women, like menstrual disorders are a common one, vaginal symptoms, pregnancy. Women's health also includes conditions that are that can occur in both genders, but can present differently in women or have different effects in women. Breast cancer is one of them, for example, right? We think about breast cancer as women's issue, but it also can occur in men. It's just more common in women. Osteoporosis would be another one.
Yes.
So, yeah, a wide variety of problems. We do a lot of family planning as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cervical dysplasia.
Okay.
So a wide variety of pregnancy and gynecologically related conditions.
Yes. And cervical dysplasia, it's very common, yes? Especially women in their 30s or more?
It is very common. Well, because we have also good screening methods, pap smears. Everybody's familiar with pap smears. So we do them, every 3 to 5 years these days. And we are able to catch early signs of cervical cancer. So yes, we do detect quite a number of abnormal results, and we manage them in the clinic.
Okay. And so right now with social distancing, you mentioned, you're available on phone. What are red flags in women's health issues that might be, serious people shouldn't just ignore and make sure to call more immediately for attention?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of possibilities, right? The main issues we are dealing now with is family planning, vaginal issues. We can, you can actually get a lot of clues from patient's history and from patient questioning. So we can, manage a lot of conditions over the phone. But sometimes, we do need to schedule an exam, especially if treatment doesn't work. But red flags would be in a non-pregnant woman would be any lower abdominal or pelvic pain, vaginal discharge that's abnormal, any abnormal bleeding. Abnormal periods are a very common conditions we deal with. That would mean very heavy period, prolonged period, irregular period, intermenstrual bleeding. There are a lot of different patterns, right? So that would be an issue that needs attention. Fever, but that's also a non-specific sign. So
Sure.
we look at symptoms in context.
Right. So you mentioned pelvic pain. That is pretty common, unfortunately, and a lot of women suffer without diagnosis sometimes throughout their life. I read the stat as one in 5 women have pelvic pain. So tell us, what are the symptoms? How does it usually present? What does it feel like?
Okay, yes, pelvic pain is a very common problem we see, whether it's now over the phone or in the clinic. Physical exam is an important component of evaluation, but we still can, initiate the evaluation even now when we do telemedicine. Pelvic pain is considered lower abdominal or pelvic area, right? Sometimes it could be very localized, like on one side, or sometimes it can be more generalized. Patients can present with mild persistent symptoms or intermittent symptoms that are, that have different characteristics, right? It could be a crampy pain, it could be sharp pain, a colicky, dull. So we get that, history that's important. In the pelvic area, there are a lot of systems overlapping. Right. So sometimes patients might think, oh, I have a pain in the ovary, but actually we might not know. We need to look into it and see exactly what's going on. So, we ask questions like, is there any relationship with eating, with going to the restroom, or with intercourse, or with menstrual cycle, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to pinpoint where is it coming from. So reproductive structures are one of the possibility, which, we evaluate in our specialty. But it could be just as well the urinary tract problem, or gastrointestinal, right? Or even musculoskeletal or psychosomatic, right? Right. Or coming from the nerve, some nerve problem as well. Right. A lot of different possibilities, including, pelvic floor dysfunction. Mm-hmm. Very common seen in chronic pelvic pain patients. Yeah, so it's a very vast topic, and taking good history and good targeted exam would be important to try to narrow down the possibilities. But one of the first things we would do in our clinic would be a pregnancy test, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So we take a urine sample because pregnant patients with pelvic pain are managed differently than a non-pregnant patient with pelvic pain. Pregnant patient with pelvic pain might need more immediate, more aggressive evaluation. We also use that urine for urine analysis. That's also a very common reason for having a pelvic pain, especially if it's recent, a new onset pelvic pain, urinary tract infection, right? So right. With that urine sample we get before you even see a provider, we get 2 important pieces of information. Right. And so with urinary tract infection, how do you know if you test, right, in the lab? So it's bacterial versus candida or something else. So do you recommend people test and not just, take the initiative to go over-the-counter medications? Are there any risks to just doing that on your own without any insight? Mm-hmm. Well, with urinary tract infection symptoms, like, that burning with urination you have, or frequency, urgency, especially if it's, a new onset, recent symptoms, the first thing you could do is increase fluid intake to flush the bacteria out, right? Okay. It doesn't have to be a cranberry juice. It's right. Not that helpful, actually, but just fluids, right? And, but most, very often we do need to intervene with antibiotics, actually, to treat an infection that's persistent, that's still there. There could be other conditions that could mimic urinary tract infection, like sexually transmitted infections, for example. Gonorrhea or chlamydia could cause burning with urination, mm-hmm. Or some other possibilities, but these would be the more common ones. So if an antibiotics doesn't do it, we would then look further. In the clinic, we would use that urine sample for gonorrhea and chlamydia testing. So we can do a lot of things with the urine sample. Yes. So how are we doing the testing these days? So the labs are still open, okay. But patients are a little hesitant to go. Okay, right. So we still order blood work. We have less locations, but there are labs that do blood work. So we try to limit the clinic presence of the, for the patient. So if we, let's say, need imaging and blood work, we tell them, well, go on the same day to the lab and then to do the ultrasound, right? Or if they have a clinic appointment, we try to cluster it all together. But yes, labs are open and they're still running the tests. But it's the patient's hesitancy that's has been recently noticed to delay sometimes evaluation.
Right. And so that can be a problem. And you mentioned, cancer screening. I think that, when you have signs of cancer for women's issues, usually it's quite advanced. But what would people look for if they've been avoiding? What would be signs that there might be something very serious like cancer?
Well, in reproductive, in the reproductive area, signs of cancer are commonly abnormal bleeding. So uterine cancer, cervical cancer in advanced stages, even ovarian could present as abnormal uterine bleeding. So that is also a very common complaint we see in the clinic, menstrual abnormalities of different kinds. Again, this is, we try to narrow down the possibilities by history, by seeing where and what kind of pattern there is, and imaging and blood work and exam as well.
Okay.
And pain also, right? Pain, bloating. There's no screening test for ovarian cancer. We don't screen routinely for it. But if there's any symptoms like bloating or pain, of some kind, there's very low threshold for us to send patients for imaging just to take a look at those ovaries and uterus.
Okay. Does the pain present differently, or can it vary how it presents when it's cancer?
It can vary. It could be asymptomatic, especially with cervical cancer. It's just, it typically is asymptomatic for a long period of time. So that, routine screening with Pap smears are really the only way to detect it in the manageable stages. Sometimes we see things on exam as well. So exam is a very important part, which we are now deferring, but we are planning to reopen.
Okay, that was my next question. So for us ladies that need to do our regular checkups for PAPs, major screen, right? So when will we be able to start doing that again?
So, throughout the pandemic period, there have been some providers seeing patients in the clinics, but those were specifically reserved for late pregnancy, viable pregnancy patients, like after 20 weeks of pregnancy, and urgent matters. But those actually would also go more to urgent clinics or the ER. Now we are starting to reopen for earlier pregnancy, postpartum evaluations. The well woman exams will be the last population where that's let in, but June or July for sure.
Okay.
Yes, so we have been deferring even some procedures like colposcopies. I have them scheduled next week, so yes, we're starting to see them.
Okay, so people who've been diagnosed with hyperplasia and had their scheduled colposcopy, those are still happening, or were they delayed on hold for a while?
Actually, we follow ASCCP guidelines for dysplasia management, and they have released recommendations, and most of the abnormal Pap smears can be deferred a certain amount of time. So especially with the mild abnormality. So with the higher grades dysplasia, we might see them sooner, but still, those are still procedures that have been rescheduled, the LEAP procedures and all those.
Okay.
Been delayed, yes.
Good to know. Now, in the health and wellness world, information and so-called experts abound as to what to do about, vaginal discharge, how to self-manage, homeopathic remedies, and so on. Tell us from, as an expert, what do you recommend in these situations? What's safe? What should you not do in terms of baths or other kinds of treatments?
Okay, so women physiologically have a discharge, right? That typically changes within the menstrual cycle. So the hormonal cyclicality influences the amount and the consistency of the vaginal discharge. So a certain amount is normal, especially around ovulation time, right? You will see more, especially if you're not on any hormonal contraceptives. The concerning signs of an infection would be an odor, and foul odor. It could be anything from, patient describe it as fishy, or like a dead rat, or, it's foul. Okay?
Yes.
There are different descriptions for those. So foul would be one warning sign. Coloration, discoloration, greenish, or, good amount of greenish. But, in women, sexually transmitted infections can present asymptomatically. So that's also something we keep in mind. So when patient comes in with a discharge, even if it looks like a yeast infection to us, we would usually also screen them for other possibilities. So Gonorrhea, chlamydia, trichomonas, bacteria vaginosis, yeast, those are the more common reasons. Typically, a yeast infection would present as itching, irritation, some, skin changes. Sometimes it could actually burn when you urinate, more from the contact of the urine to with the irritated skin. There are actually over-the-counter treatments that you can try for a yeast type of symptoms. Those will be the Monistat or clotrimazole. Those are vaginal preparations. There's anything from 1 day through 3 day to 7 day. There are differences in concentration. I would just go with the 3-day one, but it doesn't, either one will be appropriate. So they are not as concentrated as the ones that people prescribe, but they could appropriately treat an early yeast infection. All right. Now there's other preparations for pH, for like a Vagisil or other things like that. They don't really treat anything. They mask the symptoms, right? So one of the more common reasons for having a foul vaginal discharge would be a bacterial vaginosis. That's a very common, we can call it infection, but it's more of an imbalance in the vaginal flora. It's not sexually transmitted, but it is more common in sexually transmitted women, sexually active women. And it can just present as a good amount of foul discharge. That's actually something that your body can take care of by itself. Most of the time, if you don't do anything about it, it will go away on its own. But sometimes if the symptoms are persistent, we can treat with antibiotics. There is one medication that you can get over the counter that's actually effective, that's been shown to be effective. It's called boric acid. Those are vaginal capsules, and they can actually almost like restart that vaginal flora to get that balance back. And sometimes that's all you need. I would definitely discourage against, self-douching or any excessive hygienic, practices or products. Those can actually sometimes throw your vaginal flora off and more prone to infections. That, that natural balance is protected, keeps the pH, in the correct ranges that actually are protective.
Okay. That's great. Good information. And so for how about,
long topic though.
Yes. And what about women that are experiencing pregnancy? And I mean, it should be a joyful time, but during COVID-19, we might be like, oh my God, how am I going to manage this during this highly infectious virus?
Yes, a lot of anxiety, right? Because we don't know that much. There's not that much data. As far as it's known, it doesn't seem like pregnant women have more comorbidities. Like the flu, for example, we do see pregnant women being more prone to have complications. With COVID-19, it doesn't seem like it. They are at risk of having problems, serious problems, but pretty comparable to general population. We haven't seen any data on vertical transmission to the fetus. So probably not, but we don't know really, but it has been, proven. We also are not sure, but whether, there's any transmission through breast milk. With breastfeeding moms who are COVID positive, actually breastfeeding is encouraged with proper facial covering and breast hygiene and breast pump hygiene. So
Wow.
more of a concern about that respiratory transmission rather than breast milk transmission.
Right.
So, but yes, but it is an anxiety, time of anxiety for pregnant women because of the uncertainty, also because of the fact that they are not allowed to bring a significant other to their appointments.
Right.
Sometimes, an ultrasound experience can be very joyful and a family experience, but they are not allowed to bring anybody, even if it's their first baby. The father is not allowed. So that has been something disappointing. Yes.
And so the birthing room too, I imagine, just it's the healthcare staff.
Yes, at the hospital, yes, there's definitely limitations for visitors. For birth, the significant other is allowed, but only with that one person.
Okay. Okay, great. And I know there are many other topics in your field that we haven't talked about. Are there some that you think are important that people should be thinking about or be aware of?
Women's health is more than just OBGYN. It's just, it's also, psychological and well-being of women. I think now with us sitting, being at home, what we eat influences our health and our immune system. So healthy diet, exercise, and, limiting alcohol intake, and those will be important things for women to remember, right? Yes, but also, another thing I can say is that don't hesitate to reach out to your provider, because there is more availability now for phone visits than there has ever been.
Yes.
And we are more willing to, refill medications and manage patients now without seeing them more than ever before,
right.
Balancing those risks. So not important.
Yes. And I'm glad you touched on the mental emotional health, because we've heard some statistics that are very disturbing about abuse in the home now that people are under stress, stuck at home, confined. So if women are experiencing these issues, what should they do?
So domestic violence could, rise these times, and it's also less reported because women and children don't go men and don't go to outside to doctors who would be the ones reporting, or they don't get all the services they normally get. But there are hotlines for women in abusive relationships that could be reached. I don't know by memory, but there is a couple of hotlines that can be reached, and they're open. They're available 24 hours. For children, it's obviously a little more challenging.
Right.
But yes, that's something definitely, we will see the results of all that later on.
Right. Do you see that as a nurse practitioner? Do you get patients with those kinds of issues that you need to intervene sometimes or provide help?
We definitely see more exacerbation in depression. So I have had more those complaints more than before.
Okay.
Patients contact us specifically sometimes for depression management or to restart medication that they used to be on years ago or something like that, postpartum as well, because they don't have that family support as they could get normally, right?
Right.
But we don't manage long-term psychiatric issues, so we would refer
out. Right.
Abuse, we do touch on that. Mostly during routine women exams, and also in routine clinic visits, especially in pregnancy. I haven't heard more of those, but maybe they're just underreporting, because over the phone you don't develop that relationship with the provider as much as you would if you see them in an exam room, right?
And they may not be safe to talk on the phone. They're not in a private
by their family. So
right. Okay, well, thank you so much. And tell us, where can people find you if they need services such as yours?
Yeah, so I work with the University Health System in the outpatient clinics. I am currently in the Northwest. Well, at this point, I'm all over the place, but I will be starting in June back at the Northwest Clinic, which is on Louis Pasteur. They are renovating a clinic for us in Medical Center that we're hoping to open this summer. So we're excited for that as well.
That is exciting. Great. Well, thank you so much, Amelia. Anything else you want to add today?
No, I just wanted to thank you for, standing up for the cause you're standing for. And I hope this whole campaign goes well for you. It's good to
Thank
see
you. You too. I feel like I have to do this just to see all my friends.
you more often, right?
Right. Thank you for being on the team. Amelia, you're part of our team in this fundraising campaign, and I appreciate that. Yes. So we couldn't do it without, our community, a group effort. The more that we do that, the greater impact we have. So thank you for making an impact and being a part of our group effort.
Thank you, Alinka. You take care.
Okay. You too. Papa.
Bye.
Do widzenia. Great. Well, that was really wonderful information and a lot to think about during COVID-19 for women's issues. And thank you so much, Amelia, for sharing your expertise and your knowledge and experience. I know that there was a little bit there for a lot of ladies listening in. So thank you. And next we will have Dr. Sepper Ramani. He is a dentist, a doctor of dentistry and implantologist, which means he specializes in dental implants, and a smile specialist. So I'm so excited to be bringing him on from Canada, all the way from Vancouver, Canada. Shout out to my Canadian peeps. And so we'll be back at 11:30 in about 5 minutes with Dr. Ramani. Okay, so we're back and we are about to interview our last presenter for the morning in our health and wellness group of presenters. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be bringing in Dr. Sepper Ramani of dentistry, and let's see if this is him. Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, there we are.
Yay. How's it going, eh?
I'll change the name on the.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I figured it out.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. So this is quite the initiative you've taken on here.
Yes. It's been months in planning, and particularly last month, quite a bit of work, but well worth it. I've enjoyed it. I feel like I have to do this, as I mentioned to my last presenter, just to see all my friends, especially my distant friends.
Oh,
Nice to see you.
It's been I've been trying to get on to the Facebook link, and every time I get on the Facebook link, there seems to be some kind of a loop where it just kind of repeats something.
Okay.
So I was trying to update it. I've been trying to watch, so I've had some challenges.
Oh, I see.
Watching some of the other presenters. So I hope that I don't embarrass myself too much during the chat here.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. My name is Sepper Ramani. I'm an old friend of Alina's, and I went to university with you.
Purple and proud.
Many moons ago. We have all aged gracefully, thankfully.
Right.
So I'm a graduate of the University of Western Ontario School of Dentistry. I graduated in 2003. Since then, after then, I moved to the city of Vancouver in British Columbia, in beautiful British Columbia. And I have been practicing ever since then. In 2006, I took over the practice of a retiring dentist, and I've run Skyline Dental Center ever since then. I specialize in dental implantology and cosmetic dentistry, and I have taken over a couple of little offices in my neighborhood over those years, and just kind of merged them together to create sort of a more comprehensive facility for our patients. So I'm about 15 years in. Hoping to get back to the regular sort of swing of things once dentists are allowed to proceed with more routine dental care.
Right. And one clinic that's not in your neighborhood is Squamish. You just opened in Squamish.
Yeah. So I just took over with a partner an office about an hour away from where I live. It seems to be there seems to be a lot of need in that area for sort of essential dental care. And so I sort of saw that need and took over an office of a retiring dentist. My partner runs that office for the most part, doing more basic dentistry, general dentistry, as well as orthodontics. So he does most of the family dentistry, and I do mostly the surgical procedures that are being done over there, because that is my particular area of interest. And so, but the partner that I'm with, Dr. Shamil Haji, is amazing. Like, he's just on it. They're really lucky to have him over there in Squamish.
Great, great. So tell us about right now with social distancing. You mentioned at the beginning, soon you'll be open, hopefully. How do people keep healthy dental wise so that, those visits aren't necessary?
Well, right now, thankfully, we're not needed in their day-to-day dental care. So from that standpoint, they're fine as long as they're maintaining their routine regimen of brushing and flossing. The issue is, because they don't have access to routine dental care, meaning checkups and cleanings, we're not able to diagnose during that time if there's any cavities or any problems that are emerging. So that creates some unique challenges in terms of how patients are supposed to manage their own care. One of the things that we're asking our patients to do is to really be aware of their symptoms and to try to keep us posted as quickly as they can. Right now, during this sort of unprecedented time, dentists are only permitted to proceed with emergency care. That would mean things like bleeding, trauma, or for the most part, infection. So if there are larger cavities, if there's severe pain associated with a condition, then we can see the patient. However, because we're not able to do those diagnoses with a standard cleaning, if you will, where we're able to look at x-rays and find problems before they emerge, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to catch that during this time. So it is important, once your dentist is allowed to proceed with routine care in your own jurisdiction. I'm not sure what the rules in Texas right now, but once they are allowed, it is important that you call your dentist right away to schedule that appointment and get them to see you. It's possible that some potential issues over these last few months might have gotten worse, and it's really important for us to sort of be able to manage that as quickly as possible. I also just want to give some reassurance to your listeners that visiting the dental office now, especially now, should be one of the safest, cleanest places that you're going to visit. I know that there's a lot of apprehension and anxiety with regards to potential spread of COVID, but with the measures that many offices have taken, that pretty much every office has taken during this time of closure, it's forced us to sort of reevaluate and to also look at how we've done things in the past. And for the most part, the way that we were managing what we call universal precautions and taking care of those things were sufficient for a wide variety of ailments, potential ailments, especially bloodborne pathogens. However, with the advent of coronavirus and its airborne qualities, obviously we've been living in a world with many airborne issues. And so our protections have been sufficient for that. We've sort of doubled down a little bit. Many offices have sort of doubled down a little bit and reevaluated and even added further measures to both maintaining social distancing and physical distancing in the front end when you arrive. So contact your dentist. They might have already been in touch with you to let you know exactly what measures they've taken. And also in the back end with the enhanced PPE that we're wearing for the most part, for most of our procedures, for some of our procedures to all of our procedures. Just check with your dentist and see when they're available to be seen and schedule that appointment as soon as possible, because it's possible that things have been missed over the last few months. But brushing and flossing and those regular modes of care, that has not changed. You even probably want to double down because there's no backup plan. The other thing was cleanings as well. Many patients are on a 3 to 4 to 6 month sort of schedule for cleanings. You're not able to do that. There's probably a little bit more buildup now than there was before. So when you visit your dentist, they're probably going to want to address that soon. Great. Thank you for that. And what would be signs of like dental emergency issues that they need to call? If there's pain, anytime that there's pain, if you see an issue where there's in pain or if there's any kind of swelling going on, that is an emergency. You need to call your dentist right away. If you've broken a tooth, if it's allow for us to be able to assess and diagnose what's going on. I've been doing teleconferencing or virtual conferencing with a lot of my patients. So I'm able to see exactly what the severity of the issue is. and be able to address it right away. If it doesn't need to be addressed right away, we're able to manage it sort of pharmaceutically until we're able to see them more regularly. But yeah, things like trauma that extend into the nerve where there's symptoms associated, we're just looking for symptoms. If you have pain, then that's a legitimate reason for us to see you. If you've broken a filling and you feel a little chip on one of your back teeth and there's no pain yet, at this point, it's not enough of an emergency for most offices to be able to see you. But again, it depends on your jurisdiction. Contact your dentist and see if that's something that they can address now, or if you have to wait.
Okay. It's great that you guys are available telehealth.
Yeah.
You don't think of that with dentistry.
Yeah, we do. We are, I mean, oftentimes I've found that patients tell me what they think is the issue, but once I see it, it's a completely different issue than
Right.
how they're describing it. And it's only until I'm able to see with my own eyes what the problem is, where I can really get to giving some solutions. Unfortunately, because of the way that things are right now, and various means that are not at our disposal, it's very, very challenging for us to be able to do a diagnosis based on the way you describe it. Oftentimes the descriptions are not specific enough, and it makes it very challenging for us to be able to get to the bottom of it.
Okay. And so in terms of wisdom teeth, that can become a serious issue. How do people manage wisdom teeth extraction? How do they know when it's necessary?
Yeah. So ideally, the best time to remove wisdom teeth is in your teen years, between the ages of, I would say, 16 to 20 would be the most ideal time to remove your wisdom teeth. Probably most of your listeners remove their wisdom teeth at that time. In that being said, many people choose not to remove their wisdom teeth during that time. It's important to talk to your dentist to look at your specific issue to see if it's worthwhile for you to remove your wisdom teeth now, or to hold off, or to think that perhaps it's not necessary. I can tell you that many patients who wait until their mid-30s to remove their wisdom teeth, they wait until there's a problem. At that point, it becomes more challenging to remove the wisdom tooth because you've grown up, your bone has fully formed. It's more of an invasive procedure. And oftentimes, that wisdom tooth has also done a little bit of damage to the adjacent tooth. And so it's not uncommon for me to not only have to remove the wisdom tooth, but to also remove the adjacent tooth because of the extensive damage that's been caused by the wisdom tooth. So it's important that you talk to your dentist to see how your wisdom tooth is growing in your teen years. It's easiest to remove it at that time because your bone is still forming, your bone is soft, the tooth is likely not fully formed. And so it's much less of an invasive procedure to have that tooth removed. So again, there's an optimal time to do it. And again, talk to your dentist and to get that specifics.
Okay, great. And so when people have broken a tooth or have a congenitally missing adult, I had that too.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that. Wow. Yeah.
How do you know which route to go? Because obviously implants, are the more expensive, but cosmetically ideal. But there's crowns, there's bridges. What do people do? How do they know?
Well, I mean, look, it depends on where in your mouth you're missing that tooth. If it's in the back, it's more easy to manage a case like that if you're missing a tooth, whether we talk about bridge or an implant. The issue with front teeth, for example, if someone is congenitally missing a front tooth like you are, like you were, yes. What do we do for the patient during that interim time? With the way the technology has progressed now, we are able to sort of streamline that procedure very quickly through using guided surgery and 3D technology. We're able to actually take for example, let's say you have an infected tooth, or you and it needs to be replaced with an implant. We can actually remove the tooth, place the implant at the same day, and even make a temporary crown screwed into that implant under ideal conditions now. So wow. What we call, quote unquote, teeth in a day. So we're able to do this sort of streamlined, quicker procedure so that the patient doesn't leave the office with something removable, as you may have had to do for quite a period of time, because when you were missing your front tooth, that technology was not available. right?
Mine was more complex. I have a small mouth, so I had to have braces to make room for that implant. Yeah.
Around. So in the back, it's not as necessary to streamline it. That people are not usually as much in a rush. It's more straightforward. However, we can still manage that same sort of immediate implant technology in the back as well. So those procedures exist for patients. If you're not in an ideal scenario where we can place the implant at the exact same time that we're able to take out that tooth, then what we would do is we would have to manage it somehow temporarily.
Mhm.
The way you determine whether or not that implant is able to be managed immediately is, if I can give you an analogy, if you were to take a screw and screw that screw into a wall, if that screw, when you place that screw into the wall, is still spinning, that
Right.
screw is obviously not going to be strong enough to be able to hold a picture frame, right?
Yeah.
Well, the same holds true in our bone. When we screw an implant into our bone, if the implant is still spinning, if it's not initially stable, we can't load it with a tooth right away, with a
Mhm.
crown right away. We would have to wait. The beauty of the human body is that even if you don't have stability around that implant, when you place the implant into the bone will still fuse to that implant over the next few months, and that implant will then integrate, what we call integrate or osseointegrate. Once it integrates, it's not going to move, and it will be strong enough at a certain point to take a tooth. Usually it takes around 3 to 4 months.
Okay, interesting. Are
Yeah.
people not a candidate then if they have osteoporosis or osteopenia that may affect the jaw?
Not necessarily. We would have to look at the severity of their osteoporosis, how it's being managed. There are different ways of administration of, for example, oral bisphosphonates.
Mhm.
If these oral bisphosphonates are being administered through IV means versus oral means, what specific type of medication they're on, how long that medication sort of stays in their system, because for some of them, it stays in the system for 6 months after it is administered. It affects the way we manage our care. In general, if a patient is severely osteoporotic, they're still a candidate for implants. It just has to be managed a little bit more carefully.
Mhm.
Perhaps being cavalier and taking the tooth out, placing the implant at the same time, and loading that implant right away might be a little bit more risky. So for those various patients on various different sort of medical conditions, we'll manage their care appropriately.
Okay, good to know. And so implant cost, has that come down then with the advent in technology?
Not so much the cost of the implants. I would, yeah, actually, yes, I would say that it has, because many offices are able to mill their own crowns and do their own sort of lab work in-house by having 3D technology within their offices. So from that standpoint, because the cost to the dental practitioner might go down, then you might see that in your overall fee for your service. Again, every single case is unique, because some patients might require extensive bone grafting, some might not require it, some might also require soft tissue grafting. Again, when we're talking about front teeth, it's more challenging to manage. There are more factors involved. Bone grafting and soft tissue grafting is more important in the front, because it's, after all, it's your smile. When you smile, you want to make sure that all of your gum lines are even. Placing an implant into front teeth is not a challenge. The challenge and the true art of what we do is when we place the implant into the front teeth and making sure that the gum lines are completely even and uniform everywhere and they look symmetric. That's the true artistry in placing an implant in the correct way. So every situation is unique, and once you consult with your dentist, they'll go over what your specific needs are, and that will affect the cost ultimately.
Right. You say that very well. That was really interesting. And so with crowns, a lot of people have crowns for various reasons. I have quite a few from old fillings.
Okay.
Yes. And so maintaining the health of those crowns obviously is important for their longevity, but it's shocking to know they do not last forever. So let's talk about crowns and what you should do to improve their health and longevity.
That's a great question. Crowns, I'll first start with what crowns are for. Crowns are designed to strengthen a tooth. if a tooth has had numerous restorations, it's possibly had root canal therapy, larger fillings, where a large portion of the tooth has been compromised by these larger fillings, the tooth ultimately weakens over time. When you have a larger filling in your mouth and you don't put some kind of a covering or crown on it, that tooth has more of a chance of breaking. You might be chewing on the wrong thing at the wrong time. It might even be something as innocuous as a piece of bread. It will cause the tooth to fracture. The fracture is oftentimes restorable, but in some rare cases, that fracture is not restorable. So that's why when your dentist tells you it's time for a crown for this tooth, we want to prevent a situation where where you didn't get a crown and the tooth breaks to the point where we can't salvage it anymore. Okay. Right. So that's what, number one, that's what a crown is for. It's to strengthen a tooth. The way when we design a crown, when we make a crown, we're hoping that that crown is going to last the entirety of the patient's life, or at least, 25 years at the very least. However, we know that that's not always the case. And that's why many insurance plans will warranty crowns for about 5 years or so. Mm-hmm. And there are many reasons why crowns will often fail or need to be replaced. Number one is, let's say, it's in the back, or let's say it's in the front and you get cosmetic work done and your gums recede over the next few years, and then you can see the gum line margin and you don't like the way that looks. Now the crown is still doing its job, but it might not look as good as it did. You might want to get that crown replaced. In the back, we design these crowns, and everywhere in all of our mouths, we design the crowns to fit exactly onto the tooth in the perfect way so that we prevent any bacteria from getting in underneath. As long as you're maintaining your teeth and brushing and flossing properly, and the crown is sitting perfectly on the tooth, and this is why it's important to have regular checkups so that we can monitor the health of those crowns on our teeth, then there shouldn't be an issue with that crown. But in some instances, some bacteria can get into underneath these microscopic sort of voids between the tooth and the crown. You might be a grinder, you might be a clencher, you might have a very, very strong chewing motion, which causes these crowns to break down or fail over a number of years. So it's a variety of reasons why these crowns might need to be replaced. But again, brushing and flossing is all you need to do. You take care of your crown the same way that you take care of your teeth. There are various mechanisms that are out there for us to protect the longevity of our crowns, such as night guards, mm-hmm. such as different sort of appliances that we would wear in our mouth to sort of protect the amount of force that we're placing between our upper and our lower teeth to protect them. Just like your teeth can break down, your crowns can break down. Just like your teeth can break down, an implant can break down over many years as well. There are no guarantees of permanence. All we can do is our best efforts as maintaining oral hygiene, visiting our dentist regularly to sort of be able to sort of see a problem before it becomes an issue and address that at that point.
Right. Great, good to know. And then in situations where people maybe don't have insurance and money is an issue and they need to, a tooth is just, not doing well, needs to come out. Is it safe to just remove that tooth because you can't afford a bridge or an implant?
That is really dependent on that individual circumstance. Is it safe to remove a tooth? It's safe to remove a tooth, but the consequences of removing a tooth can be dire for some. If let's say you have all of your teeth and there's one bicuspid tooth that needs to be gone, and you remove it and you don't have the funds, for example, to replace it, is it the end of the world if you're missing one tooth in the back? Not necessarily. We would still encourage patients to try to fill that gap. It is important to try to fill that gap, but there's no danger to the patient technically. Mm-hmm. In the front as well, if you're missing a front tooth, there's no danger to you. But in terms of how that's managed long term, that's patient specific. And obviously I understand, unfortunately, dentistry is a private industry. It's not funded by the government. There are certain government programs that are out there to help patients that are low income to be able to cover some of their dental expenses. I believe in the United States, the system is that some doctors will take certain plans and some don't take certain plans. It's not like that in Canada, but you would have to consult with what plans your specific dentist takes. If they don't take plans that are sort of government funded plans, then it's not as then there aren't as many options, unfortunately. I wish I could give you a different answer. But if there are, and there's a dentist that's willing to take on some of those cases, then yes. From what I understand, though, most government funded plans will not cover more sophisticated work like crown and bridge. However, if there's infection, if there is a broken tooth, if a tooth needs a root canal, if there's an issue with one of your front teeth, oftentimes those can be repaired with most sort of low income level dental plans that exist.
And so a spacer would be used if you have to remove a tooth?
Yes, depends on the circumstance. If it's in the front, if it's in the front, for example, we might look at giving them some kind of a flipper or some kind of a removable appliance. Again, we're talking about patients that don't have the funds to replace a tooth permanently. We can make them things called flippers, which are sort of removable appliances, similar to what a hockey player would wear.
Oh yeah.
What an ice hockey player would wear. The back, we don't tend to make that many spacers for them, and unfortunately I see the long-term effects of that when they come in years later for another emergency. And what happens is when you're missing a tooth, the adjacent teeth and the opposing teeth will often sort of collapse into the space where that tooth used to be. Our teeth sort of fit like a puzzle, and so when we're missing a tooth, that gets affected that way.
Right.
And so that's why it is important, as you're saying, to use a spacer. So yes, spacers can be managed in the back. Spacers can be managed in the front to sort of hold that patient over until they're able to get something permanently fixed in place. There are things called partial dentures, removable partial dentures. Let's say a patient is missing many teeth on the bottom or on the top. They can wear these sort of removable appliances that replace the teeth that they're missing in order to give them something to sort of function with and to smile with.
Right.
The problem with, I'll just add, the problem with many removable plates, removable partial dentures, where they have like some teeth and they're missing other teeth, is that the frameworks that are around these dentures will oftentimes affect the health of the teeth that they still have. And so it creates other complications down the road. So again, every case is specific, and managing that case with your dentist is the most important thing. It's hard to give sort of broad stroke answer to some of these questions because every situation is unique.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time. I could talk to you for a long time about dentistry. You speak so well about the topic. It's interesting.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this.
Yes. Thank you for donating your time and your expertise.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dr. Sepper Romani. Thank you so much, Dr. Romani, again, for all of your information, and especially how to manage right now when we're not able to go to the dentist office, or some are starting to open here in Texas. But again, you need to talk to your dentist direct to know what their plans are. And in the meantime, we are about to start our cooking demo in 4 minutes. So at 12 o'clock, I'll meet you in the kitchen, and I'm going to demonstrate how to make a low carb, vegan street taco. Okay, we'll be back soon. And welcome back, and welcome to my kitchen. And we're going to make a vegan, vegetarian friendly street tacos, and they're going to be low carb. So first, let's get our burners going, and I'm going to put in some oil. We're going to do the tofu and some veggies at the same time. So in my tofu, when I grill it, I like to use some sesame oil. It just gives a good flavor. And sesame oil is a pretty healthy fat to use. There are healthy fats and not so healthy fats. I'm using just a tablespoon, not more. And I've got my extra firm organic tofu. Now, when it comes to soy, there's a lot of talk about soy. Is it good? Is it bad? Soy is not bad if it's not highly processed. So it's a good source of protein for people who don't want to eat animal proteins. However, if it's processed, then you're going to get a lot of the chemicals. When you overly process anything, it's not really great for you. So you want to go for tempeh or tofu. Make sure it's organic though, because we know that the GMO crops with the glyphosates that get doused in them and so on may not be great for your gut health. So we've got that going. I'm going to add extra virgin olive oil. So I've got this brand here, but you can use whatever you feel comfortable with. However, I'm also using organic, and
I do like to make sure, again, just a tablespoon, I like to make sure that it's made and processed at the same farm. So where the olives are grown is where they're picked, is where they're processed, and cold processed is the best for making olive oil, and bottled on the same farm. There's reasons for that, because you may have heard there's lots of fake oils out there, meaning there's blends, there's rancid oils on the market, and they're being passed off as 100% extra virgin olive oil, and they're not. So be really careful, do a little research before you go gung-ho, because it is a really healthy fat and important for good brain health, amongst other things. So we got the tofu grilling, and on the other pan, I'm frying up some veggies. I've got some pre-cut onion, sliced onion, very thin, and green cabbage. I like a little cabbage in my tacos. And I did kind of pre-prep everything. I feel like it's food lab days again when I was doing my nutrition degree at university. Those were fun times. So we'll just keep an eye on these and let them stir and cook. So while those are cooking, I'm not going to add any seasoning yet to the tofu, but I will go ahead and put some salt and pepper. Now, I don't have the package. This is just in my shaker, but I'm using Redmond salt. The Redmond salt is less refined. So we've still got the color because we haven't bleached and refined out all those minerals that are in that salt bed. Redmond's is famous here in Utah. It's from Utah in the United States. And there used to be a seabed there. There used to be a sea. It was called the Sundance Sea back in the Jurassic time. It dried up with the climate change back then. And so it left a bed of salt, rich in mineral deposits. And those minerals, as well as the salt itself, the sodium is good for us in small quantities. So when you're looking for a sea salt, you want to be careful again. Our environment, as we know, is not pristine. So our ocean waters and so on, they're pretty contaminated with plastics these days. So Redmond salt comes from a dried up bed of sea salt that's ancient. Therefore, there's no plastics in there. So it's a good source of sea salt where you can feel a little more, less concerned about those kinds of health issues. So while these are cooking, let's prepare our tacos to place on cooked items. I'm going to move the camera. And what I'm going to use today for my tacos to make low carb is jicama tortillas. So this is a product you can find at HEB. For people not local to Texas, HEB is just a Texan chain of grocery store, but I'm sure Whole Foods or Trader Joe's may have some kind of variation. So jicama is a plant. It's looks like a bulb, a root, and it's actually a fruit, and you slice it thin and you get these tortillas. So they're extremely low in carb. For 8 of these thin slices, you're getting 1.6 carbs. I'm only going to use 4. So that's amazing. If you were to otherwise, if you're not worried about the carbs or not trying to do keto low carb, then you could opt for other kinds of tacos, tortillas rather. So there's cassava flour, almond flour. There's all kinds of varieties, sprouted grains. I just wouldn't really, if you're thinking about health and wellness, I wouldn't go for your refined wheat flour or corn, just because there's lots of issues with their GMO crops again and the refined process of making them. Okay, so I'm just going to flip. I'm going to flip my tofu. And while that's flipped, I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning to it. So I've got some tamari. Now, tamari is soy sauce in English. And soy sauce, it's a fermented product. So Linda this morning, Linda Sherlin talking about gut health and integrative medicine. You don't need much, just a tablespoon or 2 added to your food can give you that natural probiotic from fermented foods. So that's a great way, but it is a soy product. So again, I like to make sure that I use one that's organic. I'm going to switch burners. Okay. So I also am going to use a nut butter. So to increase our protein and healthy fats, I'm going to put peanut butter. Now, if you had an allergy or sensitivity to peanuts, then you could use another kind of nut butter like cashew or almond, or you could skip it altogether. Again, I'm just doing it Well, part for flavor, because later I'm going to add something spicy, so that peanut combined with spice flavor I really like. But if you don't like it, or if nut butters aren't good for you, then don't use it. But as I said before, it's an extra protein source as well for us vegetarians. So we want to make sure that we get a variety of proteins. Okay. So it is a fat, so we do want to watch how much. 2 tablespoons is a serving. And you want to make sure your peanut butter is all natural, or whatever nut butter you choose. You don't want sugars in there. Most your average nut butter out there has, especially peanut butter, lots of sugar added. So that's not really what you want when you're trying to make a low carb meal, or if you're just trying to be healthy, because we all know those refined sugars aren't good for your blood sugar, diabetes, brain health, gut health, etc. So many things are affected by that. So I put just a smear of peanut butter on each. And then we just need to wait for our veggies to cook. Now, another thing that I'm going to be adding for some fermented goodness is some kimchi. And that's another product that is fermented. So another way to add some natural probiotics to help feed the good bacteria in your gut is kimchi. Kimchi is fermented cabbage. There's Japanese recipes. There are Korean. This one's Korean. There's many products. There's many recipes. I really like this brand. I get this at Natural Grocers here in San Antonio. But yeah, there's different recipes depending on the region. So you have to experiment. You know, you may not like one, but you might love another. And that is very true for me in kimchi. We're going to use that at the very end to top it off. So I'm going to season the tofu a little bit more. We did pour on a little bit of tamari, but now I'm going to add on some organic ginger. If you haven't noticed, that you do try to use organic for everything. It isn't a cure-all. It doesn't mean it's going to have more nutrients than the non-organic conventional version, but it does decrease your pesticide load in your body, which can be important for your health. The other product is some garlic powder. I do prefer to use natural garlic, but if you're in a pinch and doing things quick, some garlic powder can be a great flavor enhancer. Almost getting done there. Okay, and so I've diced up in advance some tomato. We're going to add this layer into our taco, and avocado. There's always, what's a taco without avocado? So I'm just going to half it. And I don't do what people do with the pit. I don't risk cutting my hand. I get my fingers dirty when I take my pit out. We're just gonna slice it across long ways and then later scoop it out for a taco. Okay, I do like my veggies on the crunchy side. I'm all about texture and love the crunch and that texture of crunchy. So I don't want to overcook these, but it's all what you prefer. And don't be afraid to play. And just because I've used these ingredients, you know, doesn't mean you can't do something else. So play, absolutely, just experiment, see what you like, what tastes good to you, what feels good to you in your gut. As Linda was saying earlier, everybody's different. Everybody's needs are different. And maybe your state where you are right now in time can be different. So if you've got bloating and things like that after eating, it's a sign that something might not be right. And you might want to get some testing or do some paying attention to what you're eating and try to figure that out. So I've layered the tofu on top of the peanut butter on top of my jicama tortilla. And now we're going to add the cabbage. Now we do want to be able to hold and eat that tortilla, so carefully don't overload. I tend to do that a lot, I have to be honest. And so if you cook too much, hey, it's veggies. So just eat it on the side. So whatever is left over, You can just put it in the middle and still eat afterwards. Now notice I'm using stainless steel. So I want to comment on that. Of course, there's so many products out there for cooking, but don't use Teflon or these nonstick surfaces. They're not healthy. They break down, and then they start leaching that chemical into your food when you cook. So stainless steel is a pretty safe way to go. There's other options, but that's a good, easy no-brainer. So let's put in our tomato slices. And notice how quick it is to make this. It really doesn't take much time. When people say, oh, Lena, it takes too much time to eat healthy. No, it really doesn't. Just you have to be willing to, think a little bit, plan ahead a little bit, but it's really not that much extra work at all. We're going to add in our avocado. Avocado is another great healthy fat. You do want to watch how much you use because it is a fat. And again, those healthy fats are important for our brain health and our gut health. Okay, so we've got almost everything except the kimchi for the spicy part. Grab an extra spoon. Now, a little goes a long way with kimchi, but again, whatever your personal preference is, do it. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit here. It is pretty juicy, so you want to spread out that juice a little bit. Sometimes I'll just take that drained juice without the solids and drizzle that as well into different dishes on my rice, on my stir fry, or what have you. Even on a salad, I've used it as a salad dressing. Just take that juice, and it's great. Okay, and now we're ready. Voila. Isn't that colorful? Remember Linda talking this morning about having a colorful palette and eating the rainbow, having a variety of foods? Here we go. So we've got our jicama taco or tortilla as the base to layer the rest. We've layered our protein, which is plant-based. It's tofu, but organic. I like the extra firm when it comes to cooking, so it has a better form. We've got some veggies with that great cruciferous. That's so good for us, again, for that prebiotic fiber. Keeps us full, especially when you're eating low carb, high fat. You want to have some good fiber and low carb veggies, and cabbage is one of the best. So all in all, between the tofu serving and the peanut butter, we've got probably about 15 grams of protein, probably more because you still have to factor in the protein in the veggies. There is some, so we probably got about 20 grams of protein. And in carbs, we've got less than 15, a little more than 10. So for one meal, that's great. If you're doing keto, you're trying to get net carbs, carbs after you've removed the fiber, to about 50 or less. We're well within that. Meal number one is just under 15. You're going to be able to hit that goal fine. Now, keto I don't recommend for everybody all the time unless you've got a medical reason, but it can be useful here and there when needed to kind of help you with different goals, depending what they are. So, but low carb eating can be sustained as long as you keep a variety. And for people who are over 40, like myself, eating low carb is just really helpful for managing your hormonal balance, maintaining your weight, improving your brain fog that can happen with those hormonal changes, et cetera, that a higher carbohydrate diet can lend to, unfortunately. So we're going to stop there. And I hope that gave you some ideas to experiment in the kitchen with. And we'll have at 1 o'clock the live interaction with 3 different animals from Once in a Wild Zoo. We're so excited to have them come on with us. So that's happening at 1 o'clock. So we're going to break for lunch and see you at 1 o'clock for Once in a Wild with Amanda Winters introducing 3 of their animals. Thank you so much.